Chapter 286. As one of the top 10 sects in the Star Dragon Federation, the Xiantian sect was located on the Xiantian Peak in Star Dragon City. The Xiantian Peak was 7,600 meters high and pierced through the clouds. No matter where you were in Star Dragon City, as long as you looked up, you could see the Xiantian Peak. At this time, on the top of the Xiantian Peak, a tall and thin figure stood on the edge of the cliff with his hands behind his back. His clothes were fluttering in the wind. His deep eyes penetrated the clouds and overlooked the entire Star Dragon City. His expression was indifferent and cold. Behind this man, an old figure stood respectfully to the side, not making a single sound. "Senior brother, you have been standing behind me for half a day. If you have something to say, just say it." The man in a black robe slowly turned around and looked calmly at the old figure in front of him, waiting for the other party's response. "Sect Master, I want to go down the mountain." The old man called and spoke slowly. His voice was hoarse and low, as if he had not spoken for many years. It was a little harsh. Go down the mountain? Why?" The man in black looked at Annan with a subtle expression and asked, "Is it because you have been quiet for a long time and there are signs of a breakthrough?" Annan had been in the Golden Core realm for many years. If there were signs of a breakthrough, it would definitely be a big deal for the Xiantian sect. Annan was silent for a moment and then whispered, "No, I just miss my grandson." Hearing Annan's answer, the man in black fell silent. After a long time, he sighed faintly and said to Annan, "All these years, I, Chan Xianfeng, have wronged you and the dead Hexen. Sect Master, the past is the past. There is no need to mention it again." Annan shook his head gently and said, "I have been in the Golden Core realm for many years and have no hope of a breakthrough. Now, I just want to see my grandson again before I die. I hope Sect Master can agree." When Chen Xianfeng heard this, he couldn't help but reveal a sad expression. Back then, he and Annan were the most outstanding disciples of the Black Heaven sect. As the junior brother, he originally had no hope of succeeding the position of sect leader. However, because of a coincidence, he obtained an extremely precious nascent soul fruit and cultivated to the nascent soul stage, becoming the second nascent soul stage cultivator of the Black Heaven sect. Therefore, he naturally became the successor of the Black Heaven sect and married the daughter of the previous sect leader, Hong Ying. However, there were no feelings between him and Hong Ying. The woman he truly loved was Annan's daughter, Enchantment. That year, he was already 96 years old, and Enchantment was only 17 years old. He once vowed to protect Enchantment for a lifetime and not let her suffer the slightest grievance. Only then did Annan agree to marry Enchantment to him. But who would have thought that this happy marriage would only last for 3 years, and then it would be shattered? "Senior brother, I didn't protect Exeter well back then. I also didn't protect Changxing well." Chen Xianfeng looked at Annan sadly and said in a low voice, "To make it up to you, I will pass the position of patriarch to Changxing and let Ao Chu assist him." "That's not necessary." Annan shook his head and said, "In order to maintain the stability of the sect, it's best to let Ao Chu succeed the position." Now that the old patriarch was still alive, Hong Ying was also in the Golden Core realm, and Chun Aochu's performance was outstanding no matter how one looked at it. Chun Changxing shouldn't succeed the position of patriarch. If Chun Xianfeng really wanted to push Chun Changxing to the position, the Black Heaven sect would be in chaos. Maintain the stability of the sect. Chun Xianfeng sneered. "If those people had the same resolve as you, Exen wouldn't have died back then. When they attacked Xian, didn't they think that the sect would be in chaos because of it? That's because they knew me and knew that I would keep you in check." Annan lowered his head. "If you really got angry back then, the Black Heaven sect would have ceased to exist. They knew you, so they bullied you. Senior brother, are you an honest person?" Chen Xuanfeng's eyes reddened. "I'm a nascent soul realm cultivator, but I can't even protect the woman I love. I can't even get close to my son. I'm afraid that I'm the most useless patriarch of the Black Heaven sect." Annan fell silent and stopped talking. If he continued, he was afraid that something would happen. Seeing that Annan was silent, Chan Xianfeng took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He said to Annan, Senior brother, if you want to go, then go. Thank you, Patriarch. I'll take my leave first. Annan thanked Chun Xianfeng and slowly left. Looking at Annan's back, Chun Xianfeng hesitated for a moment and said, Senior brother, in private, just call me junior brother like before. Annan's figure paused for a moment. He didn't respond to Chun Xuanfeng's words and gradually disappeared into the clouds. The second round of the Sixth Great Schools Revival Competition would be held on June 3rd at 9 a.m. Before that, it would be the off-season. During this period, reporters from various media outlets wanted to interview Qin Chuan and the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, they were all rejected. These reporters couldn't get the latest news and could only report some groundless news to pave the way for the revival competition. During this period, Chun Changxing was also working hard on his cultivation. This was because in the revival competition, he would be fighting on the stage. Changxing, someone is looking for you outside. Bluepool walked into the cultivation room and looked at Chun Changxing, who was sweating profusely. He said, There's someone in the living room who claims to be your grandfather. I don't know him either. Go take a look yourself. Hearing Bluepool's words, Chun Changxing couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He put down the equipment in his hands and quickly rushed to the living room. When he saw the old figure standing in the living room, he immediately cheered and ran over, jumping into the old man's arms. Grandpa! Annan looked at Chun Changxing, who was sweating profusely. When he saw the surprised smile on Chun Changxing's face, he couldn't help but reveal a smile on his old face. He said in a low voice, My good grandson, Grandpa misses you. Grandpa, why are you suddenly here? Chun Changxing looked at Annan and asked curiously. He knew that the Black Heaven sect's rules were strict. If there weren't any special circumstances, Annan shouldn't be allowed to leave the mountain. I came to see you this time to save you, Yi Zichen said. Annan looked at Chun Changxing with kind eyes. The expression on his face was quite complicated. Save me. Chun Changxing was stunned and puzzled. I'm perfectly fine. Why would I need Grandpa to save me? Don't go on the stage against the Black Heaven sect's affiliated universities. Annan reminded Chun Changxing. When the time comes, if you must go on the stage, you'll lose no matter who you face. Chun Changxing turned pale with fright and asked, Why? Because Grandpa wants you to live, Annan said helplessly. Hong Ying has high hopes for Chun Aochu. If the Black Moon Combat Academy defeats the Black Heaven sect's affiliated universities, the others will be fine. However, you'll be in big trouble. Chapter 287. June 3rd, 7 a.m. in the morning. In the dining hall, Qin Chuan was eating while curiously sizing up Chun Changxing. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chun Changxing had a lot on his mind. I feel that you're very nervous. Is it because you're about to face the Black Heaven sect's affiliated university? Qin Chuan hesitated for a moment before he finally asked. He wasn't the kind of person who liked to pry into other people's privacy, but seeing Chun Changxing like this, he was really worried for him. When he heard Qin Chuan's words, Chun Changxing pursed his lips and shook his head. I'm fine. I just didn't rest well yesterday. Qin Chuan gently nodded and said, I heard that your grandfather came over, your family, so it's inevitable that you'll have endless topics to talk about. It's normal that you didn't rest well. When he heard Qin Chuan mention Annan, Chun Changxing's expression couldn't help but change slightly. He looked at Qin Chuan and asked, Boss, if I don't perform well in the arena today, will you blame me? I knew that you had something on your mind. I was wondering what it was, but it turns out that you're worried that I'll blame you if you don't perform well. Qin Chuan chuckled and said, As long as you do your best, so what if you lose? It's not like you haven't lost before. When have I ever blamed you? Chun Changxing didn't say anything else, and Qin Chuan didn't ask any more questions. There were some things that were useless no matter how much he said. Chun Changxing could only rely on his own efforts to face his fears and overcome them. Only then would he be able to walk out of this predicament and obtain a new life. From Qin Chuan's point of view, the reason why Chun Changxing had so many worries and was so cautious was because he had been bullied by Chun Aochu for so many years that it had left a psychological shadow. However, Qin Chuan believed that after today, those psychological shadows would vanish like smoke, and the mountain that was pressing down on Chun Changxing's heart would collapse. Today's revival match was between the Black Moon Combat Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy. It could be said that it was the highlight of everyone's attention. This match was not only related to the fight for the final spot in the semifinals, but also related to the battle between Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan. Many days had passed since Qin Xuan's arrogant words, but the Qin family hadn't done anything about it. In everyone's eyes, this wasn't because the Qin family didn't care, but rather because they were waiting for a result. Qin Xuan's matter had arisen because of Qin Haoshuan, so the best way for the Qin family to deal with it was for Qin Xuan to fight his way out of the encirclement and meet Qin Haoshuan in the finals. Then, Qin Haoshuan would kill Qin Xuan as a warning to others. As for whether or not Qin Xuan would win by luck, that wasn't within the Qin family's scope of consideration. Qin Haoshuan was the Qin family's Qilin son, and he had both strength and luck. It was impossible for him to lose to Qin Xuan. On the other hand, if Qin Xuan lost to Qin Haoshuan before even fighting his way into the finals, then the Qin family wouldn't even need to make a move. Someone would naturally put Qin Xuan to death, and the Qin family would be happy to watch from the sidelines. Of course, these are just some guesses of the crowd, and they might not necessarily be the Qin family's true intentions. All in all, no one was optimistic about Qin Xuan's chances, and no one thought that the Qin family would let Qin Xuan go. At 8 o'clock, Qin Xuan and the crowd walked into the preparation area of the stadium. At this time, the people from the affiliated university of the Mysterious Sky Sect had already arrived. There were 5 official representatives from the affiliated university of the Mysterious Sky Sect. Apart from Chen Aochu, there were also Li Sairu, Hong Wan, Hong Nan, and Chun Rue. Apart from Li Sairu, the rest of the people were from the Mysterious Sky Sect, and they were also Chun Chongqing's relatives. Other people's eyes were filled with tears when they met their relatives, but Chun Chongqing's eyes were exceptionally red when he met his relatives. Chun Chongqing looked at Li Sairu, who was standing next to Chen Aochu, and his expression couldn't help but become a little ugly. However, Hong Wan still sneered and exposed Chun Chongqing's scars. Chun Chongqing, don't you know how to greet your brother and future sister-in-law when you see them? Hong Wan looked at Chun Chongqing mockingly and said, "Could it be that there's something that you can't say?" Hearing Hong Wan's words, Chun Chongqing's face couldn't help but become gloomier. He stared coldly at Hong Wan and said sternly, "Hong Wan, your master hasn't said anything yet. What are you a bitch barking for?" Chun Chongqing's sarcastic retort made Hong Wan furious. "You're courting death. That's enough, Wan." Just as Hong Wan was about to hit Chun Chongqing in anger, Chen Aochu stepped forward and stopped her. Chen Aochu slowly stepped forward and asked Chun Chongqing lightly, "Since you've returned to Star Dragon City, why don't you go home and have a look?" "There's nothing to see." Chun Chongqing sneered. "You treat me like a dog, but I've never treated you as a human. Since we both hate each other, why should we meet?" While speaking, Chun Chongqing involuntarily looked at Li Sairu, who was standing at the side. He forced a smile and said, "Do you want me to see you two together before I'm satisfied?" "Alas, I can't help it if you think that way." Chen Aochu sighed and said, "But when we meet in the arena later, I hope we won't meet." Then, Chen Aochu turned his gaze to Qin Xuan and said with a smile, "This must be the famous miracle youth, Qin Xuan. I've heard a lot about you." Qin Xuan looked at Chen Aochu with a subtle expression and said, "I've also heard of young Master Chen's reputation. Now that I've met you, you really live up to your reputation." Chen Aochu looked at Qin Xuan with some surprise. He did not expect Qin Xuan to be so friendly to him. Not only was Chen Aochu surprised, but other people who were familiar with Qin Xuan were also surprised by Qin Xuan's attitude towards Chen Aochu. Since when was Qin Xuan so easy to talk to? Just when everyone was surprised by Qin Xuan's attitude, Hong Wan sneered and said to Chun Chongqing, "Did you see that? Your new backer has to be respectful when he sees Aochu. I really don't know what you're so proud of." Hearing Chun Wan's words, Chun Chongqing was about to refute, but was stopped by Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan grinned and said, "Chongqing, although mastering the beast language is something to be proud of, you're always using the beast language to communicate with dogs. It's not good for your character. In the future, it's better not to do such things so that you won't be treated as trash with a human face and a beast heart." When Qinchuan's voice fell, everyone suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at Qinchuan with a strange expression. Just now, you were being polite to him and saying that he lived up to his reputation. Were you implying that Chen Aochu was really a beast with a human face and a beast heart? Qinchuan, there's no point in flaunting your words. Let's see who's the real deal in the arena. Chen Aochu took a deep look at Qinchuan and then turned to leave. He had already said what he needed to say. If he continued to bicker with Qinchuan, it would damage his image as a noble young master. It was better to leave. Seeing that Chen Aochu was about to leave, Qinchuan smiled and greeted him. Take care, Chen Shouxin. Chapter 288. Boss, thank you for standing up for me. Chen Changxing looked gratefully at Qinchuan. At this time, only Qinchuan could make him feel the preciousness of friendship. You've been calling me boss for almost a year. As your boss, how could I let a little brother like you suffer a loss? Qinchuan chuckled. He stretched out his hand and patted Chen Changxing on the shoulder. All right, let's not talk about those useless things. Properly adjust your state of mind, and let them experience your glory on the arena later. On the other side, Chen Aochu sat on the sofa with a cold expression. He looked at the people sitting around him and coldly said, in the competition, if Qinchuan isn't the first to go up, Chen Rue, you will go up. No matter who you face, you must beat them up for me. Chen Rue, who had been called out by Chen Aochu, nodded and said, I will definitely beat them up. Aochu, Chen Changxing has been disrespectful to you. I suggest that we report this situation to the sect's disciplinary elders. We should forcefully arrest Chen Changxing and punish him as a warning to others. Hong Wan coldly looked at Chen Changxing's figure in the distance. She looked as if she wanted to tear Chen Changxing to pieces. There's no need for that. Hong Nan, who had been silent all this time, shook her head and said, doing so won't cause any trouble for Chen Changxing. On the contrary, it will make Aochu bear the infamy of being narrow-minded. It's not worth it. I think we should just let Chen Changxing wander outside. As long as he doesn't come back, we won't see him and won't be affected by him. Hearing Hong Nan's words, Chen Aochu nodded in agreement. He felt that Hong Nan was right. He was disgusted by Chen Changxing because of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. Once the competition was over, Chen Changxing would naturally leave Star Dragon City and might never return. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to waste too much time and energy on Chen Changxing. The most important thing now is how to win the next competition. Chen Aochu coldly said, if we lose today, none of us will have a good time when we return. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. If Chen Changxing wasn't there, then losing to the Black Moon Combat Academy wouldn't be a big deal. However, Chen Changxing had become the official representative of the Black Moon Combat Academy as a substitute. No matter what, they couldn't lose. The familiar stadium, the familiar ring, and the familiar cheers. When it was 9 o'clock, the entire Red Dragon Stadium seemed to come alive. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's the day that everyone has been waiting for. Today, we will be facing off against the Black Moon Combat Academy and the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated university. Let's warmly welcome the contestants from both sides onto the stage. As soon as the host finished speaking, Qinchuan led the students from the Black Moon Combat Academy, and Chen Aochu led the students from the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities out of the resting area and slowly walked towards the arena. When they saw the 2 teams appear, the audience erupted into enthusiastic cheers. Chen Aochu smiled as he faced the cheers of his fans. He continuously waved at the people on the stage, displaying a very elegant demeanor. When he saw this scene, Qinchuan couldn't help but curl his lips and say, if I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were here to participate in the finals. It's just a revival match. Don't you feel ashamed to be so ostentatious? Qinchuan didn't deliberately lower his voice, so everyone nearby heard what he said. The smile on Chen Aochu's face couldn't help but stiffen. He raised his hand in embarrassment and didn't know if he should put it down or continue raising it. No matter what competition it is, you should show some appreciation to the fans who came to support you. Hongnan promptly spoke up and helped Chen Aochu out of this awkward situation. Only then did Chun Aochu's expression become slightly better. However, he still lowered his raised hand and didn't continue to interact with his fans. On the commentary platform, today's commentators, Zhou Wei and Mao, looked at the people from the Black Moon Combat Academy and the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities. They began to analyze today's lineup for the audience. In terms of overall realms, the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities are far superior to the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, as everyone knows, the strength of the Black Moon Combat Academy's contestants cannot be measured by their realms. Take the most famous contestant, Qin Xuan, for example. Although he's only in the early Foundation Establishment stage, he has defeated opponents in the late Foundation Establishment stage several times. It can be said that his battle record is astonishing. If the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities want to win today's competition, they must restrict Qin Xuan. However, it won't be easy to restrict Qin Xuan. Among the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities, only Chun Aochu has the strength to fight with Qin Xuan. Between Chun Aochu and Qin Xuan, whoever gets exhausted first will be at a disadvantage. Therefore, I feel that we should still observe the other contestants' performances before coming to a conclusion. Then let's wait and see. Let's see who will break through today's encirclement and successfully advance to the semifinals. Next, I will announce the start of the revival round of the 6 Great Academies qualifiers. The first match between the Black Moon Combat Academy and the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities has officially begun. The moment the host's voice fell, the Black Moon Combat Academy's first contestant stepped onto the stage. The first contestant was Long Xiao. When the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities saw that the Black Moon Combat Academy's contestant was Long Xiao, they could not help but look at Chun Rue. Chun Rue nodded solemnly as he faced everyone's gaze. He then took a step forward and slowly walked towards the stage. When he saw that Chun Rue was the first contestant from the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities, Chun Changxing said to Qin Xuan, "Be careful of Chun Rue. He's not weak and is very talented in runes." Qin Xuan slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, "Between him and Long Xiao, who do you think has a higher chance of winning?" "I don't think there's much of a difference." Chun Changxing muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "I wouldn't be surprised if either of them wins." "Then it looks like this match is going to be interesting." Qin Xuan gently smiled and said, "I think that Long Xiao has a higher chance of winning. After all, our Miss Long is very arrogant. If she loses her first match, it will be extremely painful for her." Do. Just as Qin Xuan and Chun Changxing were conversing, the referee's whistle had already sounded. The match between Long Xiao and Chun Rue had instantly begun. At the start of the battle, Long Xiao had already activated her innate rune's black flame attribute. The spiritual energy surging through her body instantly turned into black flames that crazily rushed towards Chun Rue. At this moment, Chun Rue's body suddenly lit up with a deep blue light. 3 water attribute runes suddenly erupted with powerful spiritual energy fluctuations and turned into a barrier in front of Chun Rue, completely blocking the black flames that were rushing towards him. The fierce attack of the black flames, which was known to burn everything, was blocked by the water wall. Chapter 289. The rune Chun Rue used is the Essence Water rune, which has a great advantage in defense. With the combination of the 3 runes and the principle of water and fire restraining each other, it is normal for him to be able to temporarily block the attack of the black flames. I have to say that Chun Rue is very smart. He has made the most correct decision. Indeed, the black flames burn everything. Almost nothing under the same realm can resist the burning of the black flames. Chun Rue's use of the Essence Water rune to resist is indeed the best way at this stage. However, the Essence Water rune can only resist the black flames for a moment. Chun Rue's next move will be very critical. When the commentator's voice fell, a large area of the arena had been occupied by the black flames. Only a small area was still under the protection of the Essence Water rune. However, at this time, the 3 Essence Water runes were covered with cracks. Obviously, They could not hold on for long. Once the Essence Water Rune collapsed, and Rue did not make any new moves, Rue would lose without a doubt. In the arena, Long Xiao had also noticed Rue's predicament, but she did not take it lightly. She wanted to crush Rue with an absolute advantage and not give Rue any chance to fight back. Flowing Fire Rune Array, start. Long Xiao shouted. The large area of black flames on the arena suddenly converged toward the sky and condensed into a huge black fireball above Long Xiao's head. It emitted an astonishing, scorching aura, as if it wanted to melt everything into nothingness. Looking at the huge fireball in the sky, the audience could not help but burst into a burst of exclamations. The flowing fire symbol array was the secret battle formation of the Long family, and its reputation was extremely resounding outside. Many people had only heard of it, but had never seen it before. Today, seeing the true appearance of the flowing fire symbol array, many people were stunned by the astonishing energy fluctuations released by the fireball. If this fireball smashed into the arena, it was afraid that the entire arena would directly evaporate. On the other side, Rue saw that the power fluctuations released by the fireball in the sky were becoming more and more astonishing. His face could not help but become dignified. He shouted in a low voice, and 2 runes appeared in front of him again. Earth level, heavy water rune. Following Rue's angry roar, a dark blue stream of water suddenly emerged in front of him. This stream of water was not much, only about 2 cubic meters in size, but it was extremely heavy, as if it weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. At the same time, under Long Xiao's control, the fireball in the sky brazenly fell toward Rue in the corner of the arena. The surging power fluctuations turned into a blazing aura at this moment and rushed toward Rue. Seeing Long Xiao activating the flowing fire rune array, Rue no longer hesitated. A solemn face, he manipulated the heavy water in front of him to charge toward the falling fireball. The collision of water and fire and exploded a large amount of water, burst out a large amount of water, and instantly covered the arena, turned into a vast expanse of white. It's the Essence Water Rune Array. It is to say to activate to the rune to activate twos. Is said Rue's array can be said to activate the array. Be said to activate to the said the array. To activate it Rue to activate the array. It's a pity that Rue is not a rune array master. If he can inscribe the heavy water rune array with the heavy water rune as the core, he may be able to block the impact of the flowing fire rune array. It's really a pity. Although the heavy water rune also has a strong defensive ability, the flowing fire rune array's offensive ability is stronger and more ferocious. Although Rue has 2 heavy water runes, it still seems to be too weak. Although we can't see the situation in the arena clearly, I can feel that the flowing fire rune array is still strong, but the aura of the heavy water rune is gradually weakening. It seems that Rue may lose. The commentator's words could be said to be the voice of many people. No matter from the point of view of the strength of both sides, or from the current situation, Rue was in an absolute disadvantage. At this time, Long Xiao occupied a great advantage, and it could be said that the victory was almost in her grasp. If Long Xiao wins this match, the later situation will become very advantageous to us. Lu Zi looked in the direction of the arena with excited eyes and said to Qin Chuan, "Maybe we can win the match without you appearing today. Don't be too careless." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, "Look at the affiliated University of Mysterious Sky Sect. They don't look worried at all." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi subconsciously turned her head to look at the affiliated University of Mysterious Sky Sect. Sure enough, as Qin Chuan said, Chen Aochu and the others looked calm and didn't look worried at all. Long Xiao is in trouble. Bai Yu, who was silent, suddenly said, Rue's counterattack is coming. The moment Bai Yu's voice fell, the water vapor in the arena suddenly rolled violently. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into fist-sized dark blue water droplets, suspended in the air, and trapped Long Xiao in the center. Seeing this scene, Long Xiao couldn't help but show a touch of surprise on her face. At the same time, a water ball opposite Long Xiao suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by Chun Rui's figure. Rumble. The fireball smashed into the arena, and an earth-shattering roar broke out. Chun Rui's back was facing the monstrous flames, and he didn't have any intention of looking back. His eyes were locked on Long Xiao, and he said in a deep voice, "You are already under my siege. As long as I have a thought, these heavy water balls can wrap you up in the blink of an eye. You won't be able to breathe, and you will suffocate to death." Long Xiao sneered. "Are you persuading me to surrender? What else?" Chun Rui smiled faintly. "After all, you are Long Xiao's daughter. Naturally, I can't let you lose too badly. I admit that I have somewhat underestimated you. But do you think you will win?" Long Xiao looked at Chun Rui with disdain. "You are telling me this to buy time for you to regain control of these heavy water balls." Hearing Long Xiao's words, Chun Rui's face couldn't help but change slightly. "I am also buying time by talking nonsense with you," Long Xiao shouted in a low voice. "A single spark can start a prairie fire." As Long Xiao's shout fell, the remnants of the black flames behind Chun Rui suddenly became active, condensed together, and turned into a pitch-black fire phoenix, and pounced on Chun Rui with a screech. Aware of the change behind him, Chun Rui couldn't continue to wait. He could only control the few heavy water balls to gather behind him in an attempt to resist the fire phoenix's attack. At this moment, Long Xiao's figure moved. She crossed the distance of dozens of meters in the blink of an eye, closed in on Chun Rui, and threw a punch which landed on Chun Rui's chest. The intense pain from his chest made Chun Rui's eyes widen. He looked at Long Xiao in disbelief, as if he was surprised that Long Xiao would fight him in close combat. Chapter 290. No one would have thought that a talisman formation master, a cultivator who was proficient in controlling runes, would end up fighting in close quarters. Seeing Chun Rui being suppressed by Long Xiao in the arena, Qin Chuan couldn't help but shake his head and say, "Chun Rui missed the best opportunity to attack. What a pity." "What do you mean?" Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan curiously with a confused expression. At that time, the arena was completely shrouded in water vapor. Chun Rui shouldn't have condensed the water vapor into heavy water balls. Instead, he should have used the water vapor as a cover to attack Long Xiao with ordinary water attribute methods. Although this wouldn't have caused too much damage to Long Xiao, it would have definitely disrupted Long Xiao's rhythm and affected his subsequent performance. At that time, he would have quietly condensed heavy water balls. He wouldn't have needed too many. Just a few would have been enough to easily defeat Long Xiao. Boss is right. Chun Rui seemed to have made the most prudent decision to surround Long Xiao with a large number of heavy water balls. But in fact, he was also tying his own hands and feet, giving Long Xiao an opportunity to take advantage of. Compared to Qin Chuan, Chen Chongqing undoubtedly understood Chun Rui better. Chun Rui was an overly cautious person. He only wanted to use the most powerful method to take down Long Xiao. But if Long Xiao didn't cooperate, then Chun Rui would become a paper tiger that only looked frightening. Just as everyone was discussing spiritedly, the situation in the arena had already become one-sided. Long Xiao had completely occupied the upper hand and firmly suppressed Chun Rui. At this time, Chun Rui only had the strength to resist, and it was very difficult for him to pose a threat to Long Xiao. It could be said that Long Xiao already had victory in his hands. Seeing this scene in the arena, the commentator was also somewhat emotional. He said in a clear voice, "In my opinion, whether it is the array glyphs, runes, or crystal suits, they are all auxiliary things. For cultivator, the most important thing is still the body. Only when the body is strong enough can a cultivator be called a true expert. Take the current situation, for example. Long Xiao is younger than Chun Rui, and his cultivation level is lower than Chun Rui's. Originally, when they were fighting with talisman arrays and runes, the two of them were evenly matched, but when the battle changed to close quarters combat, Chun Rui was completely suppressed by Long Shao. I agree with you very much. Nowadays, many people only pay attention to the inscription of glyphs and the meditation of glyphs, but they neglect the tempering of the body. You must know that on the battlefield, when we face the demon clan, if we are unable to kill the demon clan from distance, then we will have to engage in close combat with the demon clan. If the strength of the body is not enough, then the moment the demon clan gets close to us, we will be torn to pieces. I don't think I need to tell you how powerful the physical body of the demon race is. If you have been to the battlefield, you will definitely find that most of the people in the army walk the path of body refinement. Because if you don't train your body, when facing the demon clan's charge, you may be smashed into meat paste in the first round. The soldiers who can really survive on the battlefield all have extremely strong bodies. Therefore, I am here to call on everyone not to neglect the tempering of the body. To forge iron, you need to have a strong body. Only a strong body is truly strong. Hearing the commentator's words, many spectators who were watching the match looked at the scene in the arena and fell into deep thought. Originally, the battle between Long Shao and Chen Rue was very stalemate, and it could be said that it was difficult to determine the winner. However, when a hand-to-hand combat began, Chen Rue's performance was extremely poor. He had no power to fight back in the face of Long Zhao's attack. There was only one reason for this situation, and that was that Long Zhao's body was stronger than Chen Rue's. In the case where the rune arrays and runes had lost their effect, whoever had a stronger body would occupy the dominant position in the battle. In today's technologically advanced era, most cultivators graduated from school. They learned rune meditation, rune array inscription, and all kinds of knowledge in school, but they never learned how to strengthen the body. Although the school's training room also had special venues for tempering the body, there were very few people who really used these venues because everyone only paid attention to cultural classes and ignored physical education classes. This also caused most of the cultivators to have strong spiritual power and control many runes or rune arrays, but their bodies were extremely weak. They were only suitable for long-range combat. If they encountered a close combat situation, they basically had no chance of winning. Of course, most of the people who would be in such a situation were white-collar cultivators who lived in modern cities. Their jobs and daily lives rarely involved actual combat. As for those soldiers who often fought with the demon race on the front line, their bodies were naturally extremely strong. Just as everyone was lost in thought, the battle in the arena finally came to an end. Chen Rue was no match for Long Shao. He was knocked to the ground by Long Zhao's punch and fainted on the spot. After winning the first battle, Long Shao was not satisfied, because this was completely different from the situation she had imagined where she would crush Chen Rue and win. Because the arena needed to be repaired, the competition was suspended and Long Shao was able to walk down the arena. She looked at the slightly quiet audience and said with a sad face, "Didn't I just win a little slowly? Is there no cheering in the audience?" Looking at the aggrieved expression on Long Zhao's face, Lu Zi chuckled and said, "You misunderstood. They're just thinking about a problem." Hearing this, Long Shao asked curiously, "What problem?" "It's about tempering the body." Qin Chuan looked at Long Shao with subtle eyes and said, "This is the first time I know that your body is so strong." Long Shao said with a puzzled face, "What's there to ponder about? Regardless of whether we are men or women in the Long family, we start tempering our bodies from a young age. Before I came into contact with cultivation methods, I already started tempering my body. Isn't tempering the body something that every cultivator should do?" Hearing Long Zhao's words, Qin Chuan could not help but sigh and say, "No wonder the Long family can stand tall in the Federation for thousands of years. In my opinion, the Mystic Sky sect is slightly inferior to your Long family." The Mystic Sky sect was also a super sect that had been entrenched in the Star Dragon Federation for thousands of years. However, the Mystic Sky sect focused on the meditation of runes and ignored the tempering of the body. It could be said that they were neglecting the essentials and focusing on the trifles. No wonder they've been going downhill all these years and were getting worse with each generation. Hearing Qin Chuan's evaluation of the Mystic Sky sect, Qin Changxing's heart was a little complicated. He was also a member of the Mystic Sky sect and knew the Mystic Sky sect very well. As far as he knew, among the thousands of cultivators in the Mystic Sky sect, less than 1 in 10 had achieved anything in tempering their body. If the Mystic Sky sect did not make changes, it might be difficult for the Mystic Sky sect to maintain its current status in a few years. Chapter 291. When Rune was defeated, everyone from the Xiantian sect's affiliated university had a bad look on their faces. No one had expected Rune to make such a stupid move and lose in the end. We shouldn't have put too much hope in Rune. After all, his opponent is the Long family's first daughter. She is someone who is on par with Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning. When Hongnan saw everyone's gloomy faces, she said, "Although Rune lost, Long Zhao's condition is not much better. Why don't I fight in the next round?" Hearing Hong Nan's initiative, Chun Aochu's face became a little better. He nodded gently and said, "Then you will fight in the next round. You must win." On the other side, at this time, the repair work of the arena was already nearing completion. Just as Long Xiao was about to go up the stage again, Qin Chuan stopped Long Xiao and said to Long Xiao, "The next battle, let LVZ come up." Long Xiao looked at Qin Chuan with some surprise, and then looked at Lu Zi, who was also very surprised. Then she asked Qin Chuan, "Why do you want Lu Zi to fight? Don't you trust me?" "No, I have other plans." Qin Chuan said to Long Xiao seriously, "This is a very important decision. I can't tell you now, but you will know later." Although Long Xiao was already puzzled, she still chose to trust Qin Chuan. She did not enter the arena and gave the opportunity to Lu Zi. "Qin Chuan, what are you trying to do?" Lu Zi was a little confused. Long Xiao clearly still had the strength to fight, but Qin Chuan stopped Long Xiao from entering the arena. This was completely a waste of combat power. "Listen to me. Either you win or draw. Do your best." Qin Chuan smiled at Lu Zi and said, "Just fight to the best of your ability. There's no need to think too much." When the people standing beside Qin Chuan heard Qin Chuan's words, they were extremely puzzled. They didn't understand why Qin Chuan was doing this. What was it that couldn't be made clear now? Why did they have to wait until later to reveal it, making it so mysterious? Lu Zi did not ask any more questions and directly walked towards the stage. Everyone was shocked when they saw that the Black Moon Combat Academy's representative was not Long Xiao, but rather Lu Zi. It's very strange. In the previous battle, Long Xiao might have used up some of his strength, but he definitely still has the strength to fight. If he's lucky, he might even be able to defeat another opponent. Why didn't the Black Moon Combat Academy allow Long Xiao to continue fighting on stage? Why did they choose to replace him? This is a serious waste of his battle strength. I feel that there are only two possibilities. Either Long Xiao is already injured, but he's not showing it, or the Black Moon Combat Academy is confident in their victory and is confident that they can defeat the Black Moon Combat Academy's affiliated university without going all out. They're preparing to give everyone a chance to fight on stage and give everyone a chance to practice in order to prepare for the semifinals. Other than that, I can't think of any other reason. Then let's see what the Black Moon Combat Academy is trying to do. When the audience heard the commentator's words, they all felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. At such a crucial moment like the revival round, everyone would want to split a person into two. However, the Black Moon Combat Academy was different. Long Xiao looked like he was still alive and kicking, but they didn't allow him to fight on stage. This was simply looking down on the Black Moon Combat Academy students. When Chen Aochu and the rest saw that it was LVZ who had stepped onto the stage, they were stunned for a moment. When they heard the commentator's words, their faces instantly turned gloomy. Not only had the Black Moon Combat Academy not gone all out against them, they had even wanted to use them to train their troops. This was simply looking down on them. "Hongnan, go." Chen Aochu's face was cold as he said to Hongnan, "Kill her for me. I'll take responsibility if anything happens. I'll teach her a lesson," Hongnan said as she walked towards the stage. Naturally, it was impossible for her to kill Lu Zi, but it wouldn't be a problem for her to cripple Lu Zi. At this moment, Lu Zi stood on the stage and faced Hong Nan's furious gaze. She couldn't help but glare at Qin Xuan with hidden bitterness. It was all his fault. Now, the Black Moon Combat Academy's students were pouring their anger onto her. If she wasn't able to defeat her opponent, her fate would be extremely miserable. You people from the Black Moon Combat Academy are really arrogant, Hong Nan said to Lu Zi with a cold expression the moment she stepped onto the stage. If you don't want to be beaten too badly, it's best that you admit defeat now. Lu Zi looked at Hong Nan with a helpless expression. She spread out her hands and said, "If I said that I was forced to go on stage, would you believe me?" Black Moon Combat Academy versus Black Moon Combat Academy. Second match, Lu Zi versus Hong Nan. Begin. Toot toot toot. The moment the whistle sounded, Hong Nan immediately took out a talisman brush and an array disc. She actually began to inscribe a talisman array. Lu Zi was a little surprised when she saw this. She had looked up Hong Nan's information before, but she never knew that Hong Nan was also a talisman array master. However, seeing that Hong Nan was using both a talisman brush and a talisman array at the same time, it seemed that she wasn't very skilled in the Tao of talisman arrays. However, if Hong Nan wasn't skilled in the Tao of talisman arrays, then why was she inscribing a talisman array at the beginning of the match? Lu Zi was puzzled, but this didn't stop her from quickly inscribing a talisman array. She used the shadow body talisman array to confuse Hong Nan and hide her body. While Lu Zi hid in the dark and focused all of her attention on inscribing a new talisman array, Hong Nan had finally finished inscribing her own talisman array. Hong Nan smiled coldly as she looked at the dozens of shadows running around the stage. She suddenly activated the array disc in her hand and shouted, "Lava Talisman Array, activate!" As Hong Nan's voice fell, the array disc, which was emitting a strong scarlet light, suddenly exploded with an extremely hot aura. It almost instantly enveloped the entire stage and turned the stage a dark red, as if lava was surging within it. The talisman array that Hong Nan is using is actually an extremely rare talisman array that can change the shape of the terrain. I've heard of this lava talisman array before. It's said that it can turn the space within a certain range into a lava floor. It's definitely the best place for fire attribute cultivators to fight, and Hong Nan's innate talisman is of the fire attribute. Look, when the stage turns into a lava floor, Lu Zi's shadows begin to dissipate into mist. Lu Zi's body has been exposed. She's on the left side of the stage. When the commentator's voice rang out, everyone in the audience had already seen Lu Zi. At this moment, Lu Zi was standing on the left side of the stage, inscribing a talisman array. Her face was full of astonishment. Obviously, she didn't expect that Hong Nan's talisman array could change the shape of the terrain. Fire Phoenix burns the plains. Hong Nan's angry roar rang out. On the lava floor, a huge fire phoenix soared into the sky, emitting a blazing heat. It brazenly charged towards Lu Zi. Chapter 292. Seeing the fire phoenix pouncing towards her, LVZ had no choice but to stop inscribing the glyph and dodge to the side. The scalding ground and the flowing lava made the space where LVZ could dodge extremely fragmented, making it extremely inconvenient for her to move. On the other hand, Hong Nan was like a fish in water. She easily used her spirit force to control the ground and continuously attacked Lu Zi. In just a short moment, Lu Zi had been forced into a desperate situation and was surrounded by a sea of fire. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan couldn't help but frown slightly with a grave expression. He had underestimated Hong Nan. He didn't expect Hong Nan to have such a rare glyph array that could change the terrain. Hong Nan's talent rune is of the fire attribute. When fighting on the lava ground, her strength will increase by at least 30%. On the other hand, Lu Zi's strength will decrease by at least 30%. If this goes on, Lu Zi will be at an absolute disadvantage against Hong Nan. In addition, Lu Zi is an illusion array master. Her direct combat ability is limited, and she won't be able to defeat Hong Nan in a short time. She has almost no chance of winning this battle. As a cultivator with a talent rune of the fire attribute, Long Xiao understood Hong Nan's advantage very well. If she was on the stage, Hong Nan would definitely not dare to inscribe the lava glyph array, because her combat ability on the lava ground was definitely stronger than Hong Nan's. Do you know how to use this glyph array to change the terrain? Qin Chuan looked at Long Xiao and asked in a low voice, if you were Lu Zi, how would you deal with it? Either admit defeat or think of a way to change the situation. Long Xiao explained to Qin Chuan, although this lava glyph array can change the terrain, it is only temporary. It won't turn the stage into a lava ground forever. As long as the array disk is broken, the lava ground will naturally disappear. Upon hearing Long Xiao's words, Qin Chuan subconsciously looked towards the arena. The formation plate that could change the terrain was floating in front of Hong Nan. It was at least a few dozen meters away from Lu Zi. It was almost impossible for Lu Zi to destroy the formation plate. This was because Hong Nan had at least 100 ways to defeat her. In other words, the only option left for Lu Zi was to admit defeat. When he thought of this, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, I underestimated Hong Nan. I'm sorry. There's no need to say this, because none of us knew that Hong Nan actually had such a killing weapon. She had never used this lava talisman matrix before. Long Xiao looked at Hong Nan with a subtle expression and said, she carefully prepared this killing move, and it will only be effective against Lu Zi. Just as everyone was talking, a new change occurred in the arena. Hong Nan controlled all the fire spiritual energy on the lava ground and surrounded Lu Zi. It was like a furnace imprisoning Lu Zi and roasting Lu Zi at a high temperature. If Lu Zi stayed in there for too long, an accident might happen. Hong Nan besieged Lu Zi but did not attack. Firstly, it was to save energy for the next battle. Secondly, it was to demonstrate to Qin Chuan and the others that she wanted to force Qin Chuan to admit defeat on behalf of Lu Zi. She wanted to humiliate Qin Chuan. At this moment, the commentator also saw Lu Zi's predicament and sighed. Now, Lu Zi is completely under Hong Nan's control. As long as Hong Nan wants to, she can defeat Lu Zi at any time. The reason why she besieged Lu Zi and did not attack is to force Qin Chuan to admit defeat on behalf of Lu Zi. Previously, Qin Chuan, as the captain, changed the team at the last minute, which showed contempt for the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university. Now, Hong Nan wants to force Qin Chuan to admit defeat on behalf of his team. This is clearly a slap in the face for Qin Chuan. She wants Qin Chuan to admit his mistake. This is a big blow to Qin Chuan's prestige. Yes, now we have to see what choice Qin Chuan will make. Will he grit his teeth and refuse to admit defeat in order to maintain his prestige and watch Lu Zi get tortured by Hong Nan? Or will he put down his false reputation and admit defeat on behalf of Lu Zi? As the commentator finished speaking, the audience could not help but look at Qin Chuan, who was standing below the arena. If the commentator had not explained, they would not have thought that the confrontation in the arena had such a deep meaning. At this moment, they were very curious about what choice Qin Chuan would make. What do you think? Long Xiao turned to look at Qin Chuan. If it were her, she would choose to admit defeat in order to protect Lu Zi. Qin Chuan looked at the arena with a deep gaze. He did not answer Long Xiao immediately because he wanted to wait a little longer. Perhaps Lu Zi could make a comeback in this hopeless situation. Although the chances of a comeback were very small, he was willing to believe in Lu Zi for once. When he saw Qin Chuan remaining silent, Qin Chongqing's expression couldn't help but become somewhat subtle. He didn't understand what Qin Chuan was waiting for. Could it be that he had to admit defeat at the moment Hong Nan truly attacked LVZ? In the arena, Hong Nan glanced at the gloomy Qin Chuan and sneered. Since you're not willing to admit defeat, then let me force you to speak. Hong Nan shouted in a low voice. The spiritual energy in her body surged and condensed in front of her. It turned into a red fireball that emitted a heart-palpitating energy fluctuation. Seeing this, the audience understood that Hong Nan was going to launch her final attack on Lu Zi. Flying Flame. Under Hong Nan's control, The huge fireball flew toward the trapped Lu Zi. Suddenly, a pitch-black flash appeared in the red fireball and pierced through the fireball like a ghost. Before Hong Nan could react, it pierced the array disc. Crack! When the array disc was attacked, it immediately let out a weak, shattering sound. The lava floor of the arena suddenly fluctuated and showed signs of dissipating. Seeing this, Hong Nan's expression suddenly turned ugly. What made her even more frightened was that the fireball that was supposed to fly toward Lu Zi had stopped in the middle of the arena. It violently fluctuated and then suddenly exploded. Rumble! The crimson color completely enveloped the ring, illuminating the entire stadium with a fiery red color. Everyone present was stunned. What on earth had happened just now? Whoosh! The referee's figure quickly rushed into the arena and then quickly reappeared. He was carrying a charred figure in each hand. He expressionlessly said to the audience, Black Moon Combat Academy's Lu Zi and Black Heaven Sex affiliated universities Hong Nan have both fainted. This match is a draw. Hearing the referee's words, the audience suddenly burst into cries of surprise. Who would have thought that Hong Nan would not be able to defeat Lu Zi even when she was sure of her victory? Instead, Lu Zi had found an opportunity to forcefully turn the situation into a draw. However, how had Lu Zi managed to turn the situation around when she was at an absolute disadvantage? Chapter 293. When the fire on the arena dissipated, the arena had become pitch black and nothing could be seen. At this moment, the crystal screen above the arena suddenly began to replay the previous battle, and it was even playing in slow motion. At this moment, everyone could clearly see how Lu Zi had broken through the situation. The thing that had pierced through flying flame and shattered the array disc was actually a talisman brush. Under the slow motion, a pitch-black talisman brush, with the support of an enormous force, had pierced through the wall of fire and flying flame before accurately hitting the array disc that was floating in front of Hong Nan. This caused all of Hong Nan's preparations to become useless. At the same time, it also caused flying flame to become chaotic, causing it to explode. The situation that had been favorable to Hong Nan had instantly turned into a draw. Seeing the slow-motion replay on the crystal screen, the commentator on the commentary platform said to everyone, "If I'm not wrong, the body of this talisman brush should be made from blackwood. Blackwood is extremely hard and is impervious to fire and water. It has an excellent ability to channel spiritual energy and is often used to make high-end talisman brushes. Only blackwood can fly at such high speeds without disintegrating or being affected by the flames, and then shatter the array disc." That's right. I just checked Lu Zi's previous battle recordings. She's always been using this talisman brush made from blackwood. At that crucial moment, Lu Zi should have compressed all of her spiritual energy and used it to launch the talisman brush. If she hadn't succeeded, she might have lost her life to flying flame. I have to say that every participant from the Black Moon Combat Academy is a madman. Hearing the commentator's words, the audience felt the same way. If she wasn't a madman, who would make such a desperate move in a situation where she could lose her life at any time? Although the battle had ended in a draw, the expressions on the faces of the Black Moon Combat Academy students were not good. Qin Chuan looked in the direction of the infirmary with a complicated expression. He said to everyone, "Lu Zi was risking her life for me just now. If she had failed, she might have died." Qin Chuan knew Lu Zi very well. If he hadn't told Lu Zi that it was either a draw or a win, Lu Zi wouldn't have chosen to risk her life in that desperate situation. Fortunately, nothing happened to Lu Zi. If something happened to Lu Zi, he wouldn't be able to live in peace for the rest of his life. There's no need for you to blame yourself. Long Shao glanced at Qin Chuan and asked, "Who do you plan to send out next?" "Bai Yu." Qin Chuan looked at Bai Yu and said, "You fight the next battle." Bai Yu nodded and didn't say anything. No matter who her next opponent was, she would definitely win. On the other side, the faces of the students from the Black Heaven Sex affiliated universities were also very ugly. They had clearly won 2 consecutive battles, but they had lost one and tied the other. This result was hard for them to accept. We clearly could have won the battle. Why did we lose? Chun Aochu gloomily looked in the direction of the Black Moon Combat Academy students. His heart was filled with hatred. They had lost the battle when they had the advantage, so it would have been better to have been crushed. Aochu, don't be impatient. Let me fight the next battle. I'll definitely win for you. Hong Wan took a step forward and softly comforted the angry Chen Aochu. She then looked at Li Sairu with a threatening gaze, her eyes filled with disgust and disdain for Li Sairu. However, Li Sairu didn't care about this at all. The repairs to the arena had been completed, and the competition continued. Hong Wan didn't wait for the Black Moon Combat Academy students to step onto the stage. She took the lead and walked towards the arena. She looked at the Black Moon Combat Academy students with an arrogant expression and said, "Who's next? Come up quickly." Faced with Hong Wan's provocation, Baiyu remained silent. She slowly walked onto the stage and stood in front of Hong Wan. When the crowd saw that the Black Moon Combat Academy's representative was Baiyu, they were all curious about her. This was because they had never seen her fight before. During the official competition, Baiyu had admitted defeat without fighting Qin Haoshuan because of Qin Xuan. Therefore, the crowd didn't know much about Baiyu's strength. Baiyu can be said to be a very mysterious contestant. She's the only one in the Black Moon Combat Academy who hasn't fought on stage before. However, from what I know, Baiyu's popularity among the Black Moon Combat Academy's new students is very high. She's not below Qin Xuan and is known as the #1 new student. I've also heard of what you just said. If Baiyu is truly the #1 new student of the Black Moon Combat Academy, then we can infer from Qin Xuan's performance that Baiyu's strength must be extremely strong. Furthermore, Baiyu is only 17 years old this year and is the youngest contestant in the competition. Her future is limitless. After hearing the commentator's introduction of Baiyu, the audience was extremely shocked. They never thought that such a cold girl like Baiyu would actually be the publicly recognized #1 new student of the Black Moon Combat Academy. She was on the same level as Qin Xuan. More importantly, Baiyu is only 17 years old. It had to be known that other than Baiyu, the youngest contestant in the official competition was already 19 years old. While the audience was discussing Baiyu, Hong Wan, who was on stage, coldly smiled at Baiyu and said, "If you don't want to die, you'd better admit defeat now. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you just because you're young." Faced with Hong Wan's kind persuasion, Baiyu remained expressionless and indifferent. She had no desire to speak to Hong Wan, and this disregard made Hong Wan very unhappy. She decided that the moment the whistle sounded, she would use her secret technique and defeat Baiyu. The 6 Great Academies Qualifier Tournaments Revival Stage. Black Moon Combat Academies Baiyu versus Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities Hong Wan. The match will now begin. Toot toot toot. The moment the whistle sounded, the spiritual power in Hong Wan's body surged and instantly turned into a long red whip in her hand. She waved the long whip and lashed it fiercely on the ground, instantly smashing a tile into pieces. "Little girl, I'm coming." Baiyu indifferently looked at Hong Wan and indifferently said, "What a showy show." As Baiyu's voice fell, Hong Wan, who was about to attack, instantly flushed red. Then, a trace of fear appeared in her eyes. Hong Wan opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. The aura in her body suddenly became chaotic and her eyes rolled back. Of course, she fainted. Seeing that Hong Wan had fainted, the noisy scene suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at the unconscious Hong Wan on the stage with strange expressions. What was going on? Your opponent hasn't even used her full strength, and you've already fallen. Chapter 294. It wasn't just the audience that was dumbfounded. Even the commentator, who usually had excellent eyesight and rich experience, was dumbfounded. After a long period of silence, the referee finished checking on Hong Wan's condition and announced to the crowd, "Hong Wan from the Black Moon Combat Academy is unconscious. Baiyu from the Black Moon Combat Academy wins this match." When the referee's voice fell, the crowd burst into an uproar. Who would have thought that Bayu's first match would end in such a strange way? This made those who wanted to see what Bayu was capable of feel a little stunned. Bayu had won while standing in the same spot. How could they see anything from this? I think that Hong Wan's sudden loss of consciousness wasn't due to her, but rather because she was attacked by Bayu without us knowing. Everyone can look at the slow-motion replay on the crystal screen. Before Hong Wan fainted, there was a trace of fear on her face. She must have sensed something, which caused her expression to change. Bayu, on the other hand, wasn't surprised by Hong Wan's sudden loss of consciousness. She was extremely calm, which means that Bayu already knew that Hong Wan would be unconscious. Bayu is a student of the Black Moon Combat Academy. Perhaps Hong Wan was attacked by her spiritual force, which caused her to lose consciousness. However, if Bayu had used her spiritual force, we should have sensed it, but I didn't sense anything. It's indeed very strange, very strange. At least, I've never seen such a strange match. Hearing the commentator's words, the audience couldn't help but be even more shocked. They never thought that even the commentator wouldn't be able to understand how Bayu had defeated Hong Wan. Bayu was only at the early foundation establishment stage, while the commentator was at the mid-golden core stage. There was an entire realm between them. Even with the commentator's eyesight, he couldn't see how Bayu had defeated Hong Wan. This wasn't because the commentator was incompetent, but because Bayu was too mysterious and too strange. After the referee announced the result of the match, Bayu calmly turned around and walked down the stage. Qin Chuan looked at Bayu's calm expression and helplessly said, "I told you to be more low-key. Why are you still so high-profile?" Bayu glanced at Qin Chuan and said, "I was already very low-key." She was too weak. The corner of Qin Chuan's mouth twitched. He didn't know what to say, but the end result was good. They won another match. "Let's have Bayu fight in the next round." Long Xiao glanced at Qin Chuan and said, "Let Bayu get rid of the remaining 2 people from the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university. We can go back to rest and prepare for the semifinals." Everyone agreed with Long Xiao's suggestion. However, Qin Chuan shook his head and said, "No, I'll go next." Everyone was slightly surprised when they heard Qin Chuan say that he wanted to step onto the stage himself, but they didn't pay too much attention to it. After all, whether it was Qin Chuan or Bayu who stepped onto the stage, she would definitely be able to defeat her opponent. It wouldn't affect the outcome. Bayu looked deeply at Qin Chuan and asked, "Are you protecting me?" Qin Chuan stared blankly for a moment before smiling at Bayu. "You're wrong. I'm not protecting you. I'm just doing something more important." While Qin Chuan's group was chatting casually, Chen Aochu from the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university had a gloomy expression on his face. He hadn't expected that Hong Wan, who had confidently promised to defeat her opponent, would be instantly defeated by her opponent in an extremely strange manner. This Bayu is too strange. She's even stranger than Qin Chuan. Chen Aochu felt that he couldn't understand these people from the Black Moon Combat Academy. They were clearly just a bunch of immature brats. So why were they all so terrifying? "Let me go next." Li Sairu took a step forward and said indifferently, "Maybe I'll be able to probe her a little." Chen Aochu didn't reject Li Sairu's suggestion. If he went up the stage and directly faced Bayu, then he wouldn't have any chance of winning. Letting Li Sairu go up the stage and continue probing Bayu was the best and most suitable choice for them. However, just as Chen Aochu was about to warn Li Sairu about something, the words that were about to come out of his mouth were suddenly stuck in his throat. As they watched Qin Chuan slowly walk up the stage, Chen Aochu was stunned. Li Sairu was also stunned. The entire audience was stunned. The Black Moon Combat Academy had changed their members again. In the 4 matches, the Black Moon Combat Academy had changed their members 4 times in a row. Furthermore, aside from Lu Zi's match, the rest of the Black Moon Combat Academy's members were all in good condition. The Black Moon Combat Academy has changed their members again. This time, it's our old acquaintance, Qin Chuan. I think that this should be the last time the Black Moon Combat Academy will change their members. Qin Chuan will probably fight until the end. When the commentator saw Qin Chuan walk up the stage, he couldn't help but feel excited. It could be said that he had a rather deep understanding of Qinchuan. Now that the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities had suffered consecutive defeats, they no longer had the will to fight. Qinchuan should be able to easily win this match. In the past matches, Qinchuan has never disappointed us every time he went on stage. Now, let's see if Qinchuan will bring us even more surprises in today's match. Lisairu slowly walked up the stage under everyone's gazes. She had originally thought that she would be facing Baiyu and was prepared to lose. She never thought that her opponent would be Qinchuan. However, this didn't affect her, as she didn't think that she could defeat Qinchuan. She would still lose in the end. However, compared to losing to Baiyu in a strange way, Lisairu was more willing to face Qinchuan, who had a relatively normal fighting style. At the very least, she wouldn't lose without knowing why. Qinchuan looked at Lisairu, who was standing in front of him, and slightly pursed his lips. I'm friends with Chun Chongqing, very good friends. I've heard about the matters between you and him. Lisairu was stunned when she heard this. She never thought that Qinchuan would suddenly say such words to her on the stage. Qinchuan didn't care about the change in Lisairu's expression as he continued in a serious manner. Today, I want to give Chun Chongqing a gift, a complete transformation and liberation. What exactly do you want to do? Lisairu looked at Qinchuan with a puzzled expression. She didn't understand what Qinchuan was saying. Admit defeat, Qinchuan seriously suggested to Lisairu. If you admit defeat, I will also leave the stage and won't go up again. We'll leave the final match to Chen Aochu and Chun Chongqing. What do you think? When she heard Qinchuan's words, Lisairu couldn't help but widen her eyes. At this moment, she finally understood that the Black Moon Combat Academy's constant substitutions weren't for training, but to pave the way for Chun Chongqing's final match against Chen Aochu. Chapter 295. Do you know what you're talking about? Lisairu looked at Qinchuan in shock. She did not expect that Qinchuan would give up the victory that was within his grasp and hand over the final decision to Chun Chongqing. Haven't I made myself clear enough? Qinchuan smiled slightly and said, Chongqing is my friend and my brother. I believe that he will not let me down. Do you know that Chun Chongqing and Chen Aochu have never won against him since they were young? Lisairu looked deeply at Qinchuan and said, You are digging your own grave. Digging my own grave? Not necessarily. Qinchuan said very calmly. In the past, Chongqing would lose to Chen Aochu, but it may not be so now. Don't you trust Chun Chongqing that much and think that Chun Chongqing will definitely lose? Lisairu was speechless. Did she really not trust Chun Chongqing and think that Chun Chongqing would definitely lose? No, of course not. You must be crazy. Lisairu felt that Qinchuan was really crazy. At such a critical moment, he handed the heavy responsibility to Chun Chongqing. Chun Chongqing was under too much pressure. Lisairu was not the only one who felt that Qinchuan was crazy. Everyone who heard the conversation between Qinchuan and Lisairu felt that Qinchuan must be crazy. Letting Chun Chongqing fight against Chen Aochu? Wasn't it obvious that they were going to hand over the victory to the affiliated university of the Xiantian sect? Below the ring, Chun Chongqing looked at Qinchuan with astonishment. He did not expect that Qinchuan kept asking for substitutions so that he could fight against Chun Aochu at the end. Long Xiao was also stunned by Qinchuan's bold behavior. She looked at Chun Chongqing with astonishment and asked, Have you really never won against Chun Aochu since you were young? No. Chun Chongqing answered honestly. Whether it's a head-on battle or a sneak attack, I have never won. Long Xiao could not help but roll her eyes when she heard Chun Chongqing's words. Since you've never won, why is Qinchuan so confident in you? How would I know? Chun Chongqing smiled bitterly and said to Long Xiao, I really hope that boss is lying. I don't want to fight Chen Aochu at all. Not at all. Chun Chongqing didn't want to fight with Chen Aochu. Firstly, he couldn't beat Chen Aochu. Secondly, his grandfather had told him that if he didn't have to fight, he should try his best not to fight. If he had to fight, he definitely couldn't win. Once he won, it would bring about a fatal disaster. While Chun Chongqing was worrying about these things, Chen Aochu on the other side almost laughed out loud. He did not expect that Qin Chuan kept substituting people so that he could fight Chen Chongqing at the end. He might not have any chance of winning against Qin Chuan and Bai Yu, but against Chen Chongqing, there was no reason for him to lose. It was absolutely impossible for him to lose. Sairu admit defeat. At this time, Chen Aochu took the initiative to find the referee and admitted defeat on behalf of Li Sairu as the team leader. He could not wait to defeat Chen Chongqing in front of everyone and lead the Black Sky Sect's affiliated university to successfully fight their way out of the encirclement and enter the semifinals. Chen Aochu was not worried that Qin Chuan would lie to him. This was because Qin Chuan's words were clearly heard by all the spectators. If Qin Chuan really dared to lie to him, then Chen Aochu could guarantee that Qin Chuan's reputation would be tarnished and he would no longer have any credibility in the future. As the team leader, if Chen Aochu admitted defeat on behalf of Li Sairu, then Li Sairu would definitely be judged as having lost and would no longer be able to participate in the next match. According to the agreement, Qin Chuan would also voluntarily forfeit and no longer participate in the next match. This way, only Chen Chongqing would be left on the Black Moon Combat Academy side. To Chen Aochu, using Li Sairu to replace Qin Chuan and having him face Chen Chongqing was definitely a good deal. On the stage, Li Sairu received the referee's notification. She looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and asked, "Are you really going to do this?" Qin Chuan did not reply to Li Sairu. He only smiled faintly before turning around and walking down the stage. Seeing Qin Chuan walk down the stage, Chen Chongqing hurriedly went up to him and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, you must have been joking just now, right?" "I wasn't joking." Qin Chuan looked at Chen Chongqing with a serious expression and said, "Our Black Moon Combat Academy's crucial match, the life and death battle, will depend on you. But I'm not Chen Aochu's opponent." Chen Chongqing was a little anxious. "I fought him since I was young, and I've never won." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Chen Chongqing and asked, "Are you afraid of him?" "I'm not afraid of him," Chen Chongqing replied. If he was afraid of Chen Aochu, he would not have fought with him since he was young. Although he had never won against Chen Aochu, the more setbacks he faced, the braver he became. He would never admit defeat so easily. However, this was a matter that concerned the final spot. The pressure of having to fight Chen Aochu to determine the final spot was too great. Since you're not afraid of him, then fight seriously. It's not shameful to lose, but it's a huge profit if you win. Qin Chuan chuckled and patted Chen Chongqing's shoulder. "There are still others watching you. Don't let her down, okay?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Chen Chongqing subconsciously turned his gaze towards Li Sairu, who was standing not too far away. At this moment, Li Sairu was also looking at him with an extremely complicated gaze. When she saw Chen Chongqing looking at her, Li Sairu subconsciously shifted her gaze away, as if she was unwilling to meet Chen Chongqing's gaze. Chen Chongqing looked at Li Sairu's face, which had appeared countless times in his life. He could not help but clench his fists. This was the woman he loved the most, the woman he had sworn to marry since he was young. But now, she had been snatched away by someone else. "Boss, Chen Chongqing slowly turned his gaze to Qin Chuan. His eyes were resolute. "I will do my best. I don't want you to do your best. I just want you to win." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Chen Chongqing, "Chen Aochu has snatched away your fiancée. This match will determine whether or not our Black Evil Combat Academy can advance to the semifinals. It will also affect the bet between me and Qin Haoshuan. You must win." Chen Chongqing could not help but grit his teeth. If he lost this match, the Black Moon Combat Academy would not only lose their final spot in the semifinals, but he would also lose Li Sairu. Furthermore, Qin Chuan would also be implicated. He might even be targeted by the Qin family and lose his life. Therefore, he absolutely could not lose. At this moment, Chen Aochu was already impatient to get on the stage. His gaze was fixed on Chen Chongqing from beginning to end. His eyes were filled with a cold intent. He wanted to ruthlessly humiliate Chen Chongqing in front of Li Sairu and make Chen Chongqing lose all face. "Chen Chongqing, come. Let me, your big brother, see what your disappointing little brother has learned in the Black Moon Combat Academy over the past year. Chapter 296. This is too shocking. Who would have thought that this semi-final match would involve the internal grudges of the mysterious Sky Sect? From what I know, Chen Aochu and Chun Chongqing are half-brothers. Their relationship has been bad since they were young, and it could even be considered bad. It's said that Chun Chongqing was originally prepared to enter the mysterious Sky Sect's affiliated university, but because his fiancée, Li Sairu, was snatched away by Chen Aochu, he left the mysterious Sky Sect in a fit of anger and went to the Black Moon Combat Academy. If that's the case, then although Chen Aochu and Chun Chongqing are brothers, in reality, they are like fire and water. They can't tolerate each other. That's right. Chen Chongqing has been suppressed by Chun Aochu all these years and has never won. Now, Qin Chuan has placed the Black Moon Combat Academy's last hope on Chen Chongqing. He wants to use this enormous pressure to force out Chun Chongqing's potential and let Chen Chongqing, who has been suppressed for a long time, win fair and square. Although this is easy to say, it's extremely difficult to do. To be honest, I'm not optimistic about Chun Chongqing's chances. Qin Chuan is gambling too much. The commentator's words struck a chord with the audience. Everyone could see that the mysterious Sky Sect's affiliated university was not a match for the Black Moon Combat Academy. Even if Qin Chuan did not make a move, the Black Moon Combat Academy could still easily defeat the mysterious Sky Sect's affiliated university. However, Qin Chuan had repeatedly changed people, causing the Black Moon Combat Academy to be left with only Chen Chongqing. This also meant that Chen Chongqing could not lose. If he lost, the Black Moon Combat Academy would lose the last spot in the semifinals. Chen Chongqing might not be able to withstand this pressure. Of course, there were also people who had other opinions. Some felt that Qin Chuan knew that he would not be able to enter the finals and defeat Qin Haoshuan, so he purposely found a way out. Not only could he avoid the pressure of facing Qin Haoshuan, but he could also gain the reputation of being willing to sacrifice himself for his friend. This was killing two birds with one stone. Almost all of these people were Qin Haoshuan's fans. They instinctively suspected Qin Chuan, doubted Qin Chuan, and felt that Qin Chuan was up to no good. Just as the audience was discussing Qin Chuan's decision, Chen Chongqing had no choice but to bite the bullet and walk into the ring. Chen Aochu's face lit up with excitement when he saw Chen Chongqing walk into the ring. Qin Chuan didn't break his promise. He was definitely going to win this match. Chen Chongqing, you really made a good friend. Chen Aochu looked at Chen Chongqing playfully and said, but your friend might not be very smart. He actually placed his hopes on you in such a crucial battle. Don't you think he is stupid? You're not allowed to insult boss. Chen Chongqing stared sharply at Chen Aochu and said coldly, aren't you afraid of embarrassing the Black Heaven sect? Why should I be afraid of embarrassing myself? The loser is the one who will lose face. Chen Aochu sneered. To be honest, I really don't have much of a chance of winning against Qin Chuan and by you. But against you, I can win even with my eyes closed because I know you too well. You are a complete piece of trash. At this moment, Chen Aochu had completely abandoned his image as a noble young master in front of Chen Chongqing. His entire being was filled with hostility. His eyes were malicious, and his expression was cold and ruthless. He had lost so miserably in the previous matches. He had been sullen to death. Now that he finally had the chance to vent his anger, he had no reason to continue holding it in. Anyway, the whole world knew that he and Chen Chongqing were not on good terms. Since that was the case, he could not be bothered to pretend to be brothers in front of outsiders. The audience was not surprised to see Chen Aochu speak so harshly to Chen Chongqing. After all, no matter who it was difficult to maintain a gentleman's demeanor when facing someone they had always hated. Chen Chongqing was furious. He did not expect Chen Aochu to be so shameless and say such disgusting words. I won't let you have your way, Chen Chongqing angrily said. This time, I will definitely win against you. Originally, Chen Chongqing really did not want to fight with Chen Aochu too much. However, Chun Aochu's current attitude was too much for him to bear. He did not want to disappoint Qin Chuan, and he also did not want Qin Chuan to bear too much infamy for him. Seeing Chun Chongqing's anger, Chun Aochu laughed even more savagely and proudly. He suddenly used a sound transmission technique to whisper to Chun Chongqing, "After I win against you, to celebrate, I will forcefully take Li Sairu when I return. When the time comes, I will record it for you. Remember to check your email." Bastard! Chun Chongqing's eyes suddenly turned red. He wanted to kill Chun Aochu and tear apart that disgusting face. 6th Grade Academy's ranking tournament revival round. The final match is between Black Moon Combat Academy's Chun Chongqing and Black Heaven Sec's affiliated Chun Aochu. The match will now begin. Toot toot toot. When the whistle sounded, Chun Chongqing did not inscribe a glyph array. Instead, he rushed straight at Chun Aochu, wanting to fight him in close combat. The audience could not help but sigh when they saw this scene. When Chun Aochu had said those words, they had wondered if Chun Chongqing had lost his mind due to anger. Now, it seemed that they were right. Chun Chongqing had completely lost his mind due to anger. He had actually given up on glyph arrays, which he was most proficient in, and wanted to fight Chun Aochu in close combat. How could he possibly win if he used his weakness to attack Chun Aochu's strength? Seeing Chun Chongqing rush at him, Chun Aochu's face could not help but reveal a mocking expression. He took a step forward, and the spiritual energy in his body surged, turning into a dazzling golden glyph that adhered to his chest. It actually turned his body into a faint golden color. Golden armor glyph. Chun Aochu angrily roared and raised his hand to punch Chun Chongqing. Chun Chongqing was completely unable to resist, and his body flew out like a kite with a broken string before landing heavily on the ground. Cough, cough. Chun Chongqing got up from the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face had already turned pale, and it was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries. However, at this moment, his mind had already calmed down. He knew that he had made a wrong decision and should not have taken the initiative to charge at Chun Aochu. However, it seemed that it was a little too late to realize this, because Chun Aochu had already gained the upper hand and was in front of him. "You seem to be very upset. Are you regretting it?" Chun Aochu stood in front of Chun Chongqing with a cold expression. "If it weren't for the fact that this is a competition, I would really want to kill you. However, if I let you live and let you witness me and Li Sairu doing those things in bed, you will definitely feel worse than killing you, right? Bastard, you bang." Chun Aochu viciously kicked Chun Chongqing in the stomach and sent him flying. Compared to winning the competition immediately, he would rather torture Chun Chongqing for a while more. Chapter 297. Plop. Chun Chongqing spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. He felt as if his bones were about to fall apart, and there was not a single part of his body that was not in pain. His expression was extremely twisted, but he still clenched his teeth and endured the pain. Below the stage, Qin Chuan watched as Chun Chongqing was beaten up by Chun Aochu. His expression was still calm, but the others were somewhat anxious. Chun Chongqing's performance was too unsightly. If the Black Moon Combat Academy lost because of this, they would definitely become the Black Moon Combat Academy's sinners. Qin Chuan, Chun Chongqing won't be able to win like this. Long Xiao looked at Chun Chongqing, who was lying on the ground, and frowned. She said to Qin Chuan, "Are we really going to lose like this?" Long Xiao was very unwilling. They could have gone further, but she could not accept this result. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Long Xiao, "Things haven't developed to the worst point yet, so there's still hope. There's still a chance. Chongqing has fallen, but he might still have a chance to stand up again. We should give him a little more confidence and time." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Long Xiao was somewhat helpless. She did not know what to say. Chun Chongqing was already inferior to Chun Aochu, and now that he was at an absolute disadvantage, it was almost impossible for Chun Chongqing to make a comeback like Lu Zi. Even Long Xiao, who was Chun Chongqing's companion, was not optimistic about his chances, let alone the others. When the commentators saw Chun Chongqing take the initiative to charge at Chun Aochu, They had already concluded that Chun Changxing was not Chen Aochu's opponent. His defeat was already set in stone. Chun Changxing is still too immature. He was infuriated by Chun Aochu's words and lost his mind. He used the most unreasonable method to attack Chen Aochu. This made his situation worse, since he was already weaker than Chen Aochu. It is only natural that he would be beaten up by Chun Aochu. I think the reason why Chun Changxing is so angry is not only because of Chun Aochu's provocation, but also because of the anger and resentment he has accumulated against Chen Aochu over the past 10 years. 3 feet of ice was not built in a day. The enmity between Chun Changxing and Chen Aochu is much more than 3 feet of ice. So it's just a pity for Qin Chuan and the Black Moon Combat Academy. In order to help Chun Changxing walk out of the shadow of the past, they handed this heavy responsibility to him. It's a pity that compared to Chen Aochu, Chun Changxing's performance was too weak and incompetent. Not only did this pressure not turn into motivation, it even crushed Chun Changxing. If the Black Moon Combat Academy loses this crucial match, I can't imagine what kind of situation Qin Chuan will face in the future. Hearing the commentators' words, the expressions on the audience's faces became somewhat subtle. They looked at Chun Changxing, who had been completely crushed by Chen Aochu, and they couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan, who was standing below the stage. Their gazes were filled with pity, helplessness, ridicule, and pride. Some people did not understand the situation between Chun Changxing and Chen Aochu, but they had a rough idea of what had happened after watching the match. They believed that Qin Chuan wanted to help Chun Changxing walk out of the shadow of the past. His intentions were good, but Qin Chuan had overestimated Chun Changxing and underestimated Chen Aochu. It was quite difficult to put mud on a wall. As for those who were gloating, they were eager to see Qin Chuan lose the match. No matter how Qin Chuan lost, they would still be happy. On the other side, Li Sairu was also paying attention to every movement on the stage. Her expression had changed from the initial expectation and worry to numbness and disappointment. Chun Changxing was still the same Chun Changxing that she remembered, and he had not changed at all. How can I trust you when you're like this? You once betrayed my trust in you, and now you want to betray Qin Chuan's trust in you? From now on, who else in this world can trust you? Bang! Chun Aochu grabbed Chun Changxing's hair and viciously smashed Chun Changxing's head onto the ground. Fresh blood flowed out, dyeing the ground, and Chun Aochu's hands red. Look, is this the Black Moon Combat Academy's Chun Changxing? So many people have placed their hopes on you, but is this all you've got? Chun Aochu looked at Chun Changxing with disdain and sneered. Let me interview you. How do you feel right now? Despair or anger? Maybe neither. Maybe it's shame? No, you won't feel shame, because you've lost to me too many times. You're already used to it, and you don't have a shameful heart. Chun Changxing's eyes were red as he glared at Chun Aochu. He panted violently and squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Bastard. Chun Aochu dug his ears and sneered. Since you were young, other than calling me a bastard, what else can you call me? You don't even know how to curse, so how can you fight me? As he spoke, Chun Aochu made another move and viciously slapped Chun Changxing's face. This slap was not very strong, but it succeeded in causing Chun Changxing's cheek to swell. Seeing Chun Changxing's miserable appearance, Chun Aochu grinned and said, You have to grit your teeth and hold on. Don't ever surrender, or else I won't have much fun. Chun Changxing clenched his teeth and glared at Chun Aochu angrily. He tried to struggle, but Chun Aochu had already sealed the spiritual power in his body. Now, he was no different from an ordinary person. In front of Chun Aochu, there was nothing he could do except take a beating and be humiliated. Looking at the disgusting sneer on Chun Aochu's face, the strongest emotion in Chun Changxing's heart was not anger, but shame. He felt that he had let down Qin Chuan's trust, let down his companion's expectations, and let down Li Sairu's little remaining expectations of him. Below the ring, so many people were looking at him, hoping that he could walk out of the shadow of the past and stand under the sun again. However, He was unable to grasp this opportunity and disappointed those who truly cared about him. I'm really sorry. In the end, Chun Changxing couldn't hold it in. Tears of regret flowed down from the corners of his eyes. He really regretted it, really regretted it. If God could give him another chance to start over, he would definitely not act so cowardly again. He would definitely work hard. Hey, why are you crying? Chen Aochu couldn't help but laugh when he saw Chun Changxing's tears. Did you get some news? Are you mourning for your grandfather in advance? That old man has protected you for so many years. It's about time for him to rest. Hearing Chun Aochu's words, Chun Changxing suddenly raised his head and shouted, "What did you just say?" Chapter 298. What? Do you think no one knows that the old fart went down the mountain to see you yesterday? Chun Aochu sneered and looked at Chun Changxing with disdain. If the old fart had stayed on the mountain obediently, perhaps both of you could have survived. However, the old fart insisted on going down the mountain to see you. Tell me, isn't he courting death? What do you want to do to my grandfather? Chun Changxing stared at Chun Aochu and wanted to eat his flesh. What do you think I want to do? Chun Aochu looked at Chun Changxing with a playful gaze and said, "The real pillars of the Black Sky sect are the nascent soul cultivators. That old fart is only in the Golden Core realm. If I kill him, I will die in vain. You can't kill me, the young sect master, for that old fart, right?" Hearing Chun Aochu's words, Chun Changxing finally exploded. He raised his hand and punched out, ruthlessly smashing towards Chun Aochu's face. However, Chun Aochu easily grabbed his wrist and blocked it. TSK, 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 so you only have this much strength when you're angry. I really overestimated you. Chun Aochu seemed to be a little dispirited. After all, it was not fun to torture someone who was not as good as himself, especially when this person had lost to him countless times. I won't kill you today because I want to see you go up the mountain to collect that old fart's corpse with my own eyes. Ha bang! A blood-stained fist landed on Chun Aochu's cheek, interrupting the arrogant laughter. This time, the one who attacked was not Chun Aochu, but Chun Changxing. The one who got hit was not Chun Changxing, but Chun Aochu. Under the impact of the violent spiritual power, Chun Aochu's cheek swelled rapidly. His body flew backward involuntarily and fell heavily on the ground, splashing a cloud of dust. The burning pain on his face made Chun Aochu's mind go blank for a moment. He was confused and puzzled. He had already sealed the spiritual power in Chun Changxing's body. How could Chun Changxing still use spiritual power to attack him? He had no strength to resist and could only lie on the ground, crying like a useless person. How could he still have so much strength? Huh. Chun Changxing gasped for breath and slowly crawled up from the ground. From the beginning to the end, his gaze was firmly locked onto Chun Aochu's body. His murderous intent surged, as if it had materialized. You dare to hit me? How dare you hit me? Finally, Chun Aochu regained his senses. He stood up from the ground and stared at Chun Changxing in disbelief. He could not believe what had just happened. He had been knocked down by Chun Changxing in front of so many people. Intense shame and anger filled Chun Aochu's heart. He roared and took a step forward. The spiritual energy in his body surged and condensed into a ball in his hand. Then, he threw it at Chun Changxing. I will kill you. Bang. It was the same punch, the same position. Chun Aochu was once again knocked down by Chun Changxing and fell to the ground. If the first time was because Chun Aochu was not paying attention and Chun Changxing took advantage of the opportunity, then how could the second time be explained? The commentators didn't know what to say. The audience was also stunned by the scene in front of them. Chun Changxing, who didn't have the strength to fight back before, was knocking down Chun Aochu again and again. What was going on? How? Chun Aochu was completely stunned. He was knocked down by Chun Changxing again. Chun Changxing looked at the shocked Chun Aochu and slowly walked towards him. When Chun Aochu saw this, he couldn't help but reveal a look of fear. However, this fear quickly turned into anger. Incomparable anger. You piece of trash. I will kill you. Chen Aochu roared and charged at Chen Changxing again. This time, he completely exploded with all his strength. He wanted to release his full form and crush Chen Changxing. However, before he could fully release the hidden power in his body, Chen Changxing's figure had already appeared in front of him like a ghost. Chen Changxing viciously punched him in the face again. Bang! Chen Aochu fell again. He was defeated by Chen Changxing's punch 3 times in a row. Looking at the soulless Chen Aochu lying on the ground, Chen Changxing panted and said in a low voice, "Do you know that I've been practicing this punch since I was 3 years old? Every day, I have to throw thousands of punches at the wooden stakes. Tens of thousands of punches. I would imagine the wooden stake as your face and beat you up violently. However, I have never used this punch on you because Grandpa did not allow me to do so. I didn't understand in the past. I only thought that because you were the older brother and I was the younger brother, I should respect you and give in to you. Even if you bullied me, I should silently endure it. I have been like this for more than 10 years. I'm used to it and numb to it. But why do you want to steal my favorite girl? Ever since I was young, the best things have always been yours. Even my fiancé should be yours, right? Do you know? Why did my grandpa look for me yesterday? He told me not to go on the stage and not to fight with people from Black Heaven Sex-affiliated universities. If I have to go on the stage, I must lose. If I don't lose, I will be killed. I don't want to die, and I don't want my grandpa to die either. Therefore, I decided to betray my boss's trust in me and my friends' expectations of me. I will let you beat me up and not fight back. I thought that by doing this, you would let me go like you did in the past and proudly announce your victory. However, why did you want to kill my grandpa? You've already gotten the best of everything in the world. Everything I have is yours. Why won't you even let go of my last family member? Amidst his furious roar, Chen Changxing ruthlessly punched Chen Aochu in the face. That crazy strength almost shattered Chen Aochu's head. His handsome face was now bruised and swollen, and he no longer looked human. This punch is for the past me. Bang! This punch is for the present me. Bang! I'm punching him on behalf of my grandfather. Punch after punch, Chen Changxing's fists landed heavily on Chen Aochu's body, breaking Chen Aochu's bones and turning him into a bloody mess. The entire stadium was silent. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of Seashell. Chen Aochu's arrogance, Chen Changxing's humiliation, Chen Aochu's shock, and Chen Changxing's desperate cry. All of this deeply stimulated everyone's nerves. The young man who had been weak and bullied for more than 10 years finally stood up. Chapter 299. On the stage, the referee stopped the crazed Chen Changxing. If the referee did not act, then Chen Changxing might turn Chen Aochu into a pile of minced meat. Looking at Chen Aochu, who was completely unconscious and covered in blood, the referee's cheeks twitched as he announced, Black Moon Combat Academy versus Black Sky Sex-affiliated University. In the last match of the revival round, Chen Aochu is unconscious. The winner is Chen Changxing. The winner was Chen Changxing. When he heard the referee's announcement, Chen Changxing started to cry and wail. He sat on the ground and covered his face with his hands as he wantonly cried. He was venting the grievances and pain that had accumulated in his heart for the past 10 years. At this moment, the crowd, which was supposed to be cheering for the winner, was extremely quiet. Everyone looked at Chen Changxing, who was sitting on the stage and crying. Some of the more emotional people also started to cry. They pitied Chen Changxing, sympathizing with this youth who had been bullied for 10 years. Today, he had finally stood up. Qin Chuan slowly walked onto the stage and squatted down in front of Chen Changxing. He smiled and asked, "Why are you crying? Shouldn't you be happy that you won the match?" When he heard Qin Chuan's words, Chen Changxing slowly raised his head. His nose twitched as he choked with sobs and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, it's been 10 years. I've been bullied by Chen Aochu for 10 years. This is the first time I've won against him fair and square." As he spoke, Chen Changxing started to cry again. He really couldn't control his emotions and wanted to cry to his heart's content. Long Xiao and Baiyu walked onto the stage and stood beside Chen Chongqing. They looked at Chen Chongqing, who was once again bawling. Their emotions were somewhat complicated. Long Xiao, who was born in a noble family, never knew that the disciples of the world would have such hardships and hardships. All right, don't cry. We won, not lost. After receiving treatment, Lu Zi, who had recovered, also appeared on the stage. She looked at Chen Chongqing, who was crying like a child and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Those who didn't know what was going on would think that the Black Moon Combat Academy had lost. Boss, I'm sorry. Chen Chongqing suddenly looked at Qin Chuan and said with shame, I originally wanted to lose to Chen Aochu on purpose. If it wasn't for him, before Chen Chongqing could finish, he was interrupted by Qin Chuan. He chuckled and said, All right, I don't blame you. The process isn't important. The result is the most important. Qin Chuan is right. Chen Aochu has bullied you for more than 10 years. Now that you have defeated him in front of everyone, this is a perfect result for you. Long Xiao lamented to Chen Chongqing, I'm afraid that punch of yours will leave a shadow in Chen Aochu's heart for the rest of his life. Chen Chongqing, don't cry. Lu Zi patted Chen Chongqing's shoulder and said to him, I think that you need to give that girl an explanation. I heard everything just now. You said that she's your most beloved girl, and she's waiting for you below the stage. After hearing Lu Zi's words, everyone subconsciously looked at Li Sairu, who was standing below the stage. Li Sairu was at a loss when faced with everyone's gazes, so she subconsciously turned around and left. When he saw that Li Sairu had left, Qin Chuan hurriedly pulled Chen Chongqing up from the ground and pushed him, saying, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after her. Chen Chongqing looked at Li Sairu's gradually disappearing figure and gritted his teeth before suddenly chasing after her. Seeing Chen Chongqing chasing after Li Sairu, Lu Zi faintly sighed and said, What an enviable relationship. When Qin Chuan heard this, he turned to look at Lu Zi and said in a low voice, I'm sorry. Lu Zi was stunned for a moment and asked Qin Chuan in confusion, Why are you suddenly apologizing to me? If it weren't for my request, you wouldn't have been in danger before, so I should apologize to you. Qin Chuan looked seriously at Lu Zi and said, Next time, I definitely won't let you encounter that kind of danger again. When she heard Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi burst out laughing and asked, Then how are you going to compensate me? Well, I'll just say a few more words of apology. I'm sorry. Hey, you're too perfunctory. Bang! The elegant and graceful young woman fiercely threw the exquisite celadone tea set on the floor, smashing it to pieces and making a frightening sound. Bastard. He's simply a bastard. The young woman was flustered and exasperated as she cursed angrily. How dare that son of a bitch hit Aochu? How dare he beat Aochu up like that? He's courting death. I must kill him. Madam, please calm down. The white-haired old woman standing beside the young woman coughed softly and said to the young woman, Madam, young master threatened to kill a Nan on the stage and has already violated the taboo. We were wrong first. I don't care. The young woman shouted angrily, He hit my son, so I want him dead. Who do you want dead? At this moment, a tall and thin figure slowly walked into the room and walked in front of the young woman with a gloomy face. Chen Xiantian, your son was beaten. Are you not going to do anything about it? When the young woman saw the man who came in, she immediately said angrily, Aren't you afraid of losing your reputation as the leader of the Black Sky sect? What's there to lose about the Black Sky sect's reputation? Chen Xiantian snorted coldly. Han Ying, if you hadn't spoiled and indulged Aochu, how could he have said such disgraceful words on the stage today? My face and the Black Sky sect's face have long been lost by that unfilial son. Chen Xiantian. Han Ying was furious. Your son was beaten up. It's fine if you don't stand up for him, but you're actually criticizing me? Aochu has bullied Chongqing since he was young. It's been more than 10 years. Why haven't you asked about it? Chen Xiantian looked coldly at Han Ying. Chongqing has only beaten Aochu up once, and you're already unwilling? That son of a bitch should have died long ago. Han Ying spoke without thinking and said angrily, If it wasn't for slap. Chun Xiantian couldn't bear it and slapped Hong Ying hard, interrupting her words. Hong Ying looked at Chun Xiantian in shock. After being husband and wife for so many years, this was the first time Chun Xiantian had hit her. Hong Ying, I'm warning you. Chun Chongqing is also my son. If you don't like him, you can refuse to see him, ignore him, or ignore him. But if I hear you insult him one more time, I'll strip out you of his position as the young sect leader. If you don't accept it, go find your father and ask him to remove me from my position as the sect leader and expel me from the sect. After saying this, Chun Xiantian flicked his sleeves and left, not giving Hong Ying a chance to make a scene. Wet nurse, he hit me. He actually hit me. Hong Ying covered her face and cried. She couldn't accept this fact. The old woman stood behind Hong Ying and sighed helplessly when she saw Hong Ying crying. Probably no nascent soul cultivator would be so vexed over the matters between his wife and son. Chun Xiantian had really suffered all these years. Chapter 300. Before the match between the Black Moon Combat Academy and the affiliated University of the Black Heaven Sect, no one would have thought that the person who would leave the deepest impression in this match was not Qin Chuan or Bai Yu, but Qin Chongqing, the second son of the Black Heaven Sect's master and the younger brother that Chun Aochu had bullied since childhood. As the young master of the Black Heaven Sect, Chun Aochu had always been regarded as an existence on par with Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning. Today, he had made a fool of himself in the arena. Not only had he spoken vulgarly, but he had also been beaten by Chun Chongqing to the point that he could not even fight back. It could be said that he had lost all face for the Black Heaven Sect. On the other hand, Chun Chongqing, who had endured for more than 10 years, suddenly exploded and became the model of a true man. As a man, he should endure what ordinary people could not endure and do what ordinary people could not do. For the sake of his family's safety, he should endure humiliation and fight back for the sake of his family's safety. Only then would he not have lived his life in vain. Of course, in addition to reporting on Chun Chongqing, the media also reported on Qin Chuan. After all, Chun Chongqing's rise today was due to Qin Chuan, his good friend and brother. If not for Qin Chuan's firm support, Chun Chongqing might not have had the opportunity to fight back. When the media wanted to interview Qin Chuan and Chun Chongqing, Qin Chuan had already slipped away, leaving Chun Chongqing alone with the reporters. Facing the reporters' encirclement, Chun Chongqing was miserable. He could only answer a few questions to satisfy the reporters' curiosity and quickly find an opportunity to leave. When he got rid of the reporters, Li Sairu's figure had already disappeared from Chun Chongqing's sight. Chun Chongqing looked left and right, but he could not find Li Sairu anywhere. He could not help but feel a little dejected, completely losing his previous anticipation and apprehension. "Are you looking for me?" Just as Chun Chongqing was feeling sad, an extremely familiar voice suddenly rang out behind him. Chun Chongqing quickly turned around and looked at Li Sairu with a pleasantly surprised expression. He cheered Sairu. Seeing Chun Chongqing's excited expression, Li Sairu's eyes could not help but reveal a complicated expression. She whispered, "Congratulations, you've successfully defeated your inner demon." Sairu. Chun Chongqing looked at Li Sairu with deep affection, as if he had 1,000 words to say to her. "Chongqing, Li Sairu pursed her lips and said softly, "We can't go back." Hearing Li Sairu's words, the thousands of words that Chun Chongqing had yet to say were all stuck in his throat. He couldn't say anything. Were they really unable to go back? Could it be? Thinking of a certain possibility, Chun Chongqing's face could not help but reveal a pained expression. He hated his own incompetence, hated himself for not being able to stand up sooner. There's still a long way to go. You'll definitely meet a girl who truly loves you and treats you wholeheartedly. Li Sairu held back her tears and said to Chun Chongqing in a hoarse voice, "Let's forget about me." After saying this, Li Sairu turned around and left. She was afraid that if she didn't leave, she would not be able to hold back her tears. Chun Chongqing stood there in a daze, watching Li Sairu's figure gradually disappear into the distance. His heart felt empty, as if he had lost the most important thing in his life. When Chun Chongqing, who was in a daze, returned to the office, the living room was quiet. Only Qin Chuan was sitting on the sofa and drinking water leisurely. Seeing Chun Chongqing come back, Qin Chuan smiled and said to Chun Chongqing, "Chongqing, come and sit down." Chun Chongqing, who was depressed in his heart, heard Qin Chuan's words. He slowly walked to Qin Chuan's side and sat down. He picked up the cup beside him and drank a lot of water. Then he said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, have you ever loved a girl deeply in your life?" "No." Qin Chuan shook his head and said, "To be honest, I've never liked a girl since I was a child. At that time, I was busy with my life every day. How could I have time to talk about love?" Hearing Qin Chuan's answer, Chun Chongqing couldn't help but ask, "What about Wang Wenxue? You were childhood sweethearts. Boss, have you never fallen in love with her?" "To tell you the truth, I did fall in love with her, but it was just a feeling. I didn't really like her." At the mention of Wang Wenxue, Qin Chuan's eyes couldn't help but reveal a complicated expression. He softly said to Chun Chongqing, "Back then, Wang Wenxue and I grew up together. We were childhood sweethearts. At that time, I thought that I would spend the rest of my life with Wang Wenxue like this. But later on, Wang Wenxue was tested to have an extremely high cultivation talent, while I was a good-for-nothing. From that day on, the relationship between Wang Wenxue and I changed. It became pure and simple. It was not until that incident that we broke off contact." Qin Chuan had also thought that if Wang Wenxue hadn't been a genius and he hadn't been a loser, maybe he would have really gotten together with Wang Wenxue. However, there were no ifs in this world. Hearing this, Chun Chongqing looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and asked, "Boss, if God gave you a chance to start over with Wang Wenxue, would you be willing?" "There are no ifs in this world. Even if there were, I wouldn't be willing to change the current situation. It's good to let nature take its course." Qin Chuan patted Chun Chongqing's shoulder lightly and said, "You're only 19 years old. You're still very young. It's a good thing to experience a painstaking relationship, but it's not right to be unable to recover from it. Trust me, you'll definitely meet a girl better than Li Sairu in the future." "Thank you, boss." Chun Chongqing sighed and said, "I'm just a little worried." With Chun Aochu's temper, he might vent his anger on Sairu because of what happened today. If Chun Aochu really did that, it would only make people look down on him even more. Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Even if Chun Aochu wants to do that, those who want to keep his position as the young lord will definitely do their best to stop him." Chun Chongqing thought carefully and felt that Qin Chuan's words made some sense. Therefore, he temporarily put down the worry in his heart and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, I really have to thank you properly today. I also hope that you can punish me severely." Although Qin Chuan had already said that he wouldn't be calculative, Chun Chongqing still felt apologetic in his heart. It was very difficult for him to pretend that nothing had happened. Qin Chuan looked deeply at Chun Chongqing and said, "Since you insist, then I won't be polite. Let's go. Follow me to the cultivation room. I'm lacking a human sandbag. You can be it." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Chun Chongqing's face couldn't help but change slightly and asked, "Boss, can we change the punishment method?" "That's not impossible." Qin Chuan looked at Chun Chongqing with a smile and said, "Senior Lan's mood isn't too good. Why don't you accompany her for a chat?" Chun Chongqing. Chapter 301. Shuxin, this is the chocolate cake I personally made. Do you want to try it? Chun Chongqing was all smiles as he handed a piece of cake to Lan Shuxin, appearing to be extremely enthusiastic. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Student Chun. I've been on a diet recently, so I won't be eating." Lan Shuxin calmly rejected the cake Chun Chongqing handed her. From the beginning to the end, she didn't even glance at him. Faced with Lan Shuxin's deliberate rejection and aloofness, Chun Chongqing couldn't help but reveal an awkward expression. He looked at Blue Pool, who was sitting at the side with a pleading gaze. However, Blue Pool didn't sense anything amiss and didn't give any response. "Senior Lan, do you want to eat the strawberry cake?" Qin Chuan suddenly walked over, holding a piece of strawberry cake in his hand. Lan Shuxing glanced at the strawberry cake in Qin Chuan's hand, smiled, and said, "Thank you." After saying that, Lan Shuxing reached out to receive the strawberry cake from Qin Chuan and started eating it in small bites. Seeing this scene, Chen Changxing couldn't help but throw a resentful glance at Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan acted as if he didn't see Chen Changxing's gaze and said to Lan Shuxing with a grin, "Senior, are you free tonight? I have a small problem with my cultivation and would like to consult you." "Sure, wait a minute." Chen Changxing finally couldn't take it anymore. He jumped up and hooked his arm around Qin Chuan's neck, dragging him into the distance. Only when he was far enough away from Lan Shuxing did he let go of Qin Chuan. "Boss, you're too much." Chen Changxing looked at Qin Chuan gloomily and said, "It wasn't easy for me to find a chance to get closer to Shuxing. How can you come and spoil it? You're an idiot." Qin Chuan rolled his eyes and said, "This isn't called spoiling. This is called a wingman. Do you know what a wingman is?" Chen Changxing looked at Qin Chuan in astonishment and said in disbelief, "Someone like you who's never been in a relationship knows what a wingman is. Even if you haven't eaten pork, haven't you seen pigs run?" Qin Chuan rolled his eyes at Chen Changxing and said, "Let me ask you, from Senior Sisterland's performance just now, did you see anything?" "What?" Chen Changxing looked at Qin Chuan in confusion. "Idiot, can't you see that Senior Sister Lan deliberately ate the cake I gave her in front of you? She's just trying to piss you off." Qin Chuan rolled his eyes at Chen Changxing and said, "Tonight, I will invite Senior Sister Lan to the cultivation room. When the time comes, I won't go, but you will. You will pester Senior Sister Lan to help you cultivate. If she doesn't agree, you will say that you will be the first to fight in the semi-finals and that you want to get a good start for the school. Senior Sister Lan will definitely help you for the school's honor." "Boss, am I going to be in the starting lineup for the semi-finals?" Chen Changxing's eyes widened. Qin Chuan was a little speechless. "This is just an excuse, understand? When the time comes, we'll just find an excuse to dodge it. The key now is to break the ice, understand? Boss is indeed boss." Chen Changxing gave Qin Chuan a thumbs up and said, "Little brother, my future happiness will depend on you, boss." "Wait a moment." Qin Chuan looked at Chen Changxing and asked seriously, "Tell me first, what are your thoughts in the future? If you and Senior Sister Lan are together, will you still think about Li Sairu?" Chen Changxing couldn't help but fall silent after hearing Qin Chuan's words. After a while, he opened his mouth and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, why can't I have both Soothing and Sairu at the same time?" Qin Chuan was speechless. The revival round of the 6th Grade Academy's ranking tournament had ended. The Black Moon Combat Academy had won consecutive battles and had successfully advanced to the semifinals. This made the semifinals of the official tournament very interesting. First of all, because the Black Moon Combat Academy and Star Dragon's #1 Academy had fought before, it was impossible for the Black Moon Combat Academy and Star Dragon's #1 Academy to meet in the semifinals. In other words, if Qin Chuan and Qin Haoshuan wanted to settle their grudges in the arena, then they would have to advance to the finals. But before that, the Black Moon Combat Academy would have to face no weaklings. Starry Sky Academy, the weakest academy and the last place in the previous ranking competitions of the 6 Great Academies. This year, because of Zhou Lin's sudden appearance, Starry Sky Academy had a strong rise and was also a dark horse. Many people wanted to witness the collision between Qin Chuan and Zhou Lin to see who exactly was the king of the dark horse. The other was the Divine Sword Academy. The Divine Sword Academy focused on body refinement and sword cultivation. Almost every student was a sword cultivator, and a sword cultivator's strongest point was their offense. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that no one would be a match for a sword cultivator in an open battle. Among the younger generation, Su Kuang, who was known as the Little Sword Deity, was definitely the #1 sword cultivator. No matter who the Black Moon Combat Academy met, it would be a tough battle. However, the Cosmic Star Academy was slightly weaker in comparison. After all, only Zhou Lin was strong, and the rest were average. On the other hand, the Divine Sword Academy students were all extremely strong, especially Su Kuang. Even Qin Haoshuan might not dare to face Su Kuang head-on. If Qin Chuan met Su Kuang, he might not win. Only the Black Moon Combat Academy, the Cosmic Star Academy, and the Divine Sword Academy had participated in the drawing ceremony for the semifinals. Under everyone's attention, the Cosmic Star Academy's representative, Zhou Lin, had drawn a blank lot. This meant that the Black Moon Combat Academy would face the Divine Sword Academy in the semifinals. When the results of the drawing were announced, everyone couldn't help but sigh. The Black Moon Combat Academy had once again drawn the worst lot. From the revival round until now, it had been a hellish level of difficulty. After the results of the drawing were announced, Qin Chuan was invited out by Zhou Lin. Walking on the wide streets of Star Dragon City, Qin Chuan looked at the various kinds of people around him and the flying shuttles in the sky. He couldn't help but think of the first time he had gone to the Cloud Dragon Mountain Range with Zhou Lin. He smiled and said to Zhou Lin, "Senior sister, I suddenly thought of your Skywalker number 9. That's a ride that I've always dreamed of having. It's really too cool." Zhou Lin smiled faintly and said, "If you can defeat Qin Haoshuan in the finals, then I'll give you my Skywalker number 9. Qin Chuan looked at Zhou Lin with some surprise. It wasn't because Zhou Lin was generous enough to give him an expensive limited edition flying shuttle, but because Zhou Lin said that he would meet Qin Haoshuan in the finals. "Senior sister, don't you have the confidence to defeat Qin Haoshuan?" Qin Chuan looked at Zhou Lin with a subtle expression. Zhou Lin pursed her lips. "To be honest, I don't have much chance of winning. However, I will try my best because I want to meet you in the finals." "Senior sister, you have to believe in yourself." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Zhou Lin and said, "We will definitely meet in the finals." Chapter 302. The Deity Sword Villa was located in the southwest corner of Star Dragon City. Although it was a little remote, it occupied a large area. Above this land, there were dozens of huge sword mountains. These sword mountains were filled with swords. Some were flying swords, some were broadswords, and some were ordinary alloy swords. Some were even broken swords. These swords were not inserted into the sword mountains for no reason. Each sword had its own unique origin. If one were to count them one by one, it would take more than 10 days and 10 nights to count them all. In the center of the sword mountains, there was a very special existence. It was a sharp peak. It was not very tall, only about 100 meters. It was not filled with all kinds of swords like the sword mountains. It was clean and tidy. It was the favorite place of many sword cultivators in the Deity Sword Villa. It was called the Sword Hut. The Sword Hut had a total of 10 floors. Every floor would have a smaller space. It was more beneficial for condensing sword intent and cultivating sword Tao. In the Deity Sword Villa, only those with great talent or those who had made outstanding contributions to the Deity Sword Villa were qualified to cultivate in the Sword Hut. Those who could cultivate in the upper 5 floors were even rarer. It was said that the famous Sword Immortal of the Deity Sword Villa was cultivating in the 10th floor of the Sword Hut. At this time, Su Kuang, who was known as the Little Sword Immortal, was sitting on the 8th floor of the Sword Hut. He was concentrating on cultivating the Sword of the Immortal. After the space simulation changed the environment, the place where Su Kuang was turned into a barren battlefield. Flames were burning in the middle of the battlefield, and the smell of blood and burnt flesh filled the air. Broken weapons and magic weapon fragments were everywhere, and in the center of the battlefield, a silver-white long sword was stuck straight into the ground. It was very eye-catching. This sword had a very famous name. It was called the Milky Way Sword. Everyone in the Star Dragon Federation knew about the Milky Way Sword because it was the sword of sword god Su Inha, the strongest person in the history of the Deity Sword Villa. Su Inha was born in the Deity Sword Villa. He started practicing swordsmanship at the age of 3 and began learning the art of forging at the age of 5. At the age of 6, he forged a sword for himself and named it the Milky Way. After that, the Milky Way sword stayed by Su Inha's side. It followed Su Inha through battlefields and explored space ruins. After being strengthened and reforged again and again, the Milky Way sword finally turned from an ordinary alloy sword into a Taoist weapon. For a magic weapon to transform into a doctrine weapon, not only did it need to be carefully forged and refined, but it also needed the owner to nourish it. The Milky Way sword had accompanied Su Inha for 70 years and had never left him. It had long been connected with Su Inha. Therefore, it could transform into a doctrine weapon in just 70 years. On the day that the Milky Way sword transformed into a doctrine weapon, Su Inha crossed thousands of miles of mountains and rivers and went straight into the land of the demon clan. He killed all the demons he encountered and went all the way to the demon court. He killed dozens of demon marshals in a row and angered 4 demon kings. They joined forces to besiege Su Inha. However, Su Inha was not afraid at all. He killed the 4 demon kings with his sword and left. After this battle, Su Inha's name shocked the world. The Milky Way sword was respected as the head of thousands of swords. The deity Sword Villa also embarked on the road to rise and became one of the top 10 sects in the Star Dragon Federation. However, the good times did not last long. 100 years later, Su Inha took the Starry Sky shuttle to explore an extremely mysterious ruins of the stars. It was unknown what kind of strong enemy he encountered. After a great battle, he returned with heavy injuries. The Milky Way sword was nowhere to be found. Su Inha, who returned to the deity Sword Villa, only had time to leave behind his last words before he passed away. Until today, no one in the deity Sword Villa knew what Su Inha encountered in the mysterious ruins of the stars. Before Su Inha died, he only left behind a scene of the battlefield for the deity Sword Villa. It was the scene where Su Kuang was now. Although Su Inha only left behind a scene, after the research of the ancestors of the deity Sword Villa, coupled with some images of Su Inha and the Milky Way sword, they simulated the sword intent and sword momentum of the Milky Way sword for the younger generation to comprehend. Although the simulated sword intent and sword momentum was not even 1/10 of the original, it still benefited the younger generation of the deity Sword Villa a lot. Phew! Su Kuang gently exhaled, then slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the Milky Way sword that was inserted in the center of the battlefield, then lowered his head to look at the black longsword on his knees. His eyes couldn't help but flash with a touch of expectation. Su Inha was Su Kuang's ancestor and also Su Kuang's idol. It was no exaggeration to say that Su Kuang grew up listening to Su Inha's stories. On the day he learned how to forge, Su Inha personally forged this sword for himself and named it Berserk Sword after himself. He hoped that one day he could be like old ancestor Su Inha and slash out a sword path that belonged to him all the way and become the new sword body of the deity Sword Villa. And this time, the 6 Great Academies ranking competition was a very good opportunity for Su Kuang to gain experience. In the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, geniuses from all over the world gathered. After walking down the path of invincible sword path, Su Kuang first had to defeat all the enemies standing in front of him. Ding dong! A sweet-sounding bell rang. Immediately, the scene in front of Su Kuang changed and slowly dissipated, returning to the appearance of the cultivation room. At the same time, a tall figure slowly walked behind him and whispered, "The results of the draw are out. In the semifinals, the Deity Sword Academy will face the Black Moon Combat Academy." Hearing this, Su Kuang gently raised his eyebrows and asked, "Qin Chuan?" "That's right, it's Qin Chuan." The girl nodded and said, "You've been concentrating on cultivation these past few days and didn't watch the competition. The overall performance of the Black Moon Combat Academy is very good." "So what?" Su Kuang slowly stood up and said indifferently, "No matter who my opponent is, I will defeat him. You're always so confident." The girl looked at Su Kuang with admiration and even worship. She whispered, "I also believe that no matter who it is, no one will be able to stop you from moving forward." Hearing the girl's words, Su Kuang asked indifferently, "You came to find me just to tell me this news?" For Su Kuang, he didn't care who his opponent was at all. He would never deliberately inquire about his opponent's information because he didn't think it was necessary. Only when he fought with an unfamiliar opponent, he would feel fresh and aware of his own shortcomings. I miss you. The girl looked at Su Kwang with a gentle gaze and whispered, I can't wait until the day I graduate from university and marry you. Hearing this, Su Kwang pursed his lips and said, before I reach the nascent soul stage, I won't break my yuan-yang body. I know. The girl smiled tenderly. I can wait, and I believe that you won't make me wait too long. Chapter 303. On the 5th of June, the weather was gloomy. Thick dark clouds shrouded the sky above Star Dragon City, as if a heavy rain could fall at any time. However, even so, it couldn't suppress the audience's enthusiasm for the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. Before 8 o'clock, the Red Dragon Stadium was already full. Everyone was looking forward to the first match of the semifinals. Today, the first match was between Star Dragon's First Academy and Starry Sky Academy. In the past, Star Dragon's First Academy and Starry Sky Academy rarely faced each other because Starry Sky Academy was always eliminated in the first round and didn't have the strength to fight their way through the revival round. This time, it was the first time that Starry Sky Academy participated in the semi-finals of the official competition. And the reason why Starry Sky Academy had such a transformation in this year's 6 Great Academies ranking competition could be said to be due to Zhou Lin's contribution. As everyone knew, the current Starry Sky Academy was completely supported by Zhou Lin alone. Without Zhou Lin, Starry Sky Academy wouldn't be any different from before. Therefore, everyone was looking forward to Zhou Lin's performance. In the preparation area, Duan Yusin sat beside Zhou Lin, held her hand, and whispered, Lin, I'm a little nervous. Zhou Lin smiled at Duan Yusin and said, don't be nervous. It doesn't matter who wins. Just do your best. The moment the results of the draw came out, except for Zhou Lin, the other 4 contestants of Starry Sky Academy began to feel nervous. This was the first time they had entered the semifinals, and also the first time they faced Star Dragon's First Academy in decades. To be honest, even with Zhou Lin, they didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Sorry, we dragged you down. Duan Yusin looked at Zhou Lin with guilt and said, if it weren't for our weak performance, you wouldn't be so tired. Everyone's face revealed a trace of shame when they heard this. Duan Yusin was right. Not only did they not contribute anything to the team, they even dragged the team down at this crucial moment and shook the team's morale. They really let down Zhou Lin's hard work. All right, everyone, don't think too much about it. Later, we'll go up the stage according to the order listed earlier. Regardless of whether we win or lose, just do your best. Zhou Lin looked at everyone's ugly complexion and knew that these people probably didn't sleep well the whole night because they were worried about the competition. In fact, Zhou Lin was very clear that it wasn't easy for the Starry Sky Academy to come this far. Whether it was facing Su Kwang or Qin Haoshuan, she didn't have much chance of winning. Even if she had to face Qin Chuan, she might not be able to win. Therefore, for the Starry Sky Academy, the 3rd place was already the best result. If they could win a 3rd place, it would be even better. At 8:40, the representatives of Star Dragon First Academy and Starry Sky Academy appeared. In this stadium that could hold hundreds of thousands of people, all the spectators were cheering for Star Dragon First Academy, Qin Haoshuan, and Yi Qingning. Almost no cheers for Starry Sky Academy could be heard. Even if there were, it was quickly drowned out by the waves of cheers, unable to create any ripples. Listening to the cheers that had nothing to do with them, the expression on the Starry Sky Academy's faces could be said to be quite disappointed. As a team that made it to the top 4, their popularity was really too low. Just when everyone's mood was low, an extremely loud voice suddenly broke through the waves of cheers and resounded in the stadium. Go Starry Sky Academy! Go Zhou Lin! Hearing this familiar voice, Zhou Lin subconsciously turned her head to look in the direction of the voice. Seeing the figure standing in the audience and holding a megaphone and shouting crazily, Zhou Lin's mouth couldn't help but reveal a joyful smile. Duan Yusin, who was walking beside Zhou Lin, saw this scene and said sourly, "This junior of yours is really good to you." Hearing this, Zhou Lin smiled and didn't say anything. For her, It didn't matter whether others supported her or not. As long as Qin Xuan supported her and stood on her side, it was enough. On the other side, after hearing Qin Xuan cheering for Zhou Lin, the expressions on the First Academy's faces became somewhat subtle. Yi Qingning looked at Qin Xuan, who was standing in the audience and shouting loudly, and couldn't help but frown slightly. She turned her gaze to Zhou Lin and revealed a deep look in her eyes. "Brother Hao Xuan, that person is Qin Xuan, right? Bao Bao will beat him up for you, okay?" Qian Duo Bao, who had some baby fat, walked beside Qin Hao Xuan and said to him in a flattering tone, "I heard that this Qin Xuan is a poor boy who came out of the slums. When the time comes, I will definitely smash him to death with money." Hearing Qian Duo Bao's words, Qin Hao Xuan pursed his lips and said, "He is my opponent." "I know, but I just want to share your burden, brother," Qian Duo Bao said coquettishly to Qin Hao Xuan. "After all, I will be your virtuous wife in the future." Hearing this, Qin Hao Xuan's mouth twitched violently. He said to Qian Duo Bao, "Qian Duo Bao, don't talk nonsense. You are the legitimate daughter of the Qian family. You should pay attention to your words and actions." While speaking, Qin Hao Xuan secretly glanced at Yi Qingning. After noticing that Yi Qingning didn't have any special reaction to this, he didn't know if he should be happy or disappointed. "I know, brother," Qian Duo Bao said to Qin Hao Xuan with some grievance. "I will listen to you." Qin Hao Xuan had a headache. He really didn't understand what the Qian family was doing. Since they had already pushed Jiang Wudi up, wouldn't it be better for them to let Jiang Wudi finish what he started? Halfway through, they actually replaced Qian Duo Bao. Wasn't this torture? Drizzt and Yunao walked behind Qin Hao Xuan. When they heard the conversation between Qin Hao Xuan and Qian Duo Bao, they couldn't help but laugh. Although Qian Duo Bao had publicly confessed to Qin Hao Xuan in front of the media, they didn't expect Qian Duo Bao to be so infatuated. She didn't have the demeanor that the legitimate daughter of the Qian family should have. Compared to Yi Qingning, she was much worse. Moreover, Qian Duo Bao's strength was still a mystery. No one knew whether Qian Duo Bao was strong or weak. However, this wasn't that important. After all, they had Qin Hao Xuan and Yi Qingning. There was basically no possibility of losing. "Big brother, let me fight in the first round," Qian Duo Bao said to Qin Hao Xuan. "I have been bored at home during this period of time. I want to fight in the arena to exercise my limbs. What do you think?" Qin Hao Xuan originally didn't intend to let Qian Duo Bao fight. However, he was really annoyed by Qian Duo Bao at this time. Therefore, he simply agreed. "Okay, if you're willing to fight, go ahead." "Oh yeah, thank you, brother. I know that you love me the most." Qin Hao Xuan. Chapter 304. Ladies and gentlemen on the scene, ladies and gentlemen in front of the crystal screen, hello. I'm the host of this tournament, Qian Qian. Let's welcome the two teams participating in the semifinals with warm applause and cheers. They are the representatives of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Starry Sky Academy. Following the host's words, the lively scene suddenly boiled up. Most of the audience were cheering for the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Starry Sky Academy. Only a few people were supporting the Starry Sky Academy. In fact, not all of the audience were fans of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy. Most of them were fans of the champion. Simply put, they would support whoever won the championship. They would only support the strongest and not the most favorite. Amidst the warm cheers of the audience, the representatives of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Starry Sky Academy slowly stepped onto the stage. Unlike before in the semifinals, the host would introduce each contestant to the audience. Captain of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy, Qin Hao Xuan. When the beautiful MC introduced Qin Hao Xuan, the cheers in the stadium suddenly became louder. As the contestant with the most female fans, Qin Hao Xuan's fangirls spared no effort in order to increase his popularity. Amidst the cheers, the host slowly walked to Yi Qingning, who was wearing a veil, and said with a smile, "Goddess of Star Dragon, Yi Qingning." Roar. Compared to the shrill cheers before, The cheers this time were much rougher. Most of Yi Qingning's fans were male, which was the opposite of Qin Haoshuan. Hearing the cheers of these male fans, Qian Duo Bao couldn't help but show a disdainful expression. He muttered in a low voice, "A bunch of guys who have never seen the world and have no sense of beauty." Qian Duo Bao. The host looked at Qian Duo Bao with a subtle expression and introduced Qian Duo Bao to the audience. To be honest, other than Qian Duo Bao's background, the host really didn't know how to introduce him. Qian Duo Bao's wealth was probably one of the few outstanding points of Qian Duo Bao. Hearing the host's introduction, Qian Duo Bao couldn't help but look at Yi Qingning proudly. Versatile. Listen, this introduction is so reliable. Complete foundation establishment, Drizzt. Late foundation establishment, Yuna. Compared to when Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning were introduced, the cheers of the audience were much softer, but it wasn't particularly obvious. When the host came to the side of the Starry Sky College, the scene suddenly quieted down and the atmosphere became extremely awkward. Starry Sky Academy, Zhou Lin. When the host introduced Zhou Lin to the audience with a smile on his face, he did not receive the cheers he had expected. The atmosphere was extremely cold, and there were almost no cheers. Zhou Lin. Zhou Lin Zhou. Zhou Lin Zhou. Of the audience of Star Dragon Academy's Academy. Stars' Academy's Star Academy. Star Dragon Academy of Academy Academies is Academy's Academy. Academy of Star Dragon Academy Academies, and of the audiences of Academy Star Academy. Sky Star Star Dragon Academy. They realized that Qin Xuan seemed to like doing things that made the first Academy of Star Dragon Academy's members unhappy. Just as the audience thought, when they heard Qin Xuan Zhou Lin's support, the first Academy of Star Dragon Academy's members' expression became somewhat subtle. Especially Yi Qingning. The more she looked at Zhou Lin, the more she disliked her. However, towards these people's gazes, in order to prevent the atmosphere from becoming even more awkward, the host quickly introduced the remaining contestants of the Starry Sky Academy. Other than Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin, Qin Xuan didn't know the other three, Cheng Hua, Wang Yu, and Wang Kong. The audience's impression of the three of them was basically zero. After introducing our contestants, let's get to today's topic. Both sides, please send a contestant to fight. The rest of the contestants, please wait in the preparation area below the stage. As the host's voice fell, the contestants of the first Academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Starry Sky Academy moved. The contestant of the first Academy of Star Dragon Academy was Qian Duo Bao, while the contestant of the Starry Sky Academy was Wang Kong. On the way to the preparation area, Qin Haoshuan looked at Zhou Lin indifferently and said, "I heard that you had a good relationship with Qin Xuan, but I didn't take it to heart. Now it seems that your relationship is really good." Zhou Lin glanced at Qin Haoshuan and said, "What are you trying to say? I just feel that if you lose miserably, Qin Xuan will be very distressed and angry." Qin Haoshuan sneered, "You'd better pray that you lose in the next round and don't have the chance to meet me. Otherwise, history might repeat itself." "It won't," Zhou Lin indifferently replied Qin Haoshuan. As for what she meant by "it won't," she meant that history wouldn't repeat itself or that they wouldn't lose the competition. It would depend on what Qin Haoshuan thought. When the contestants of both sides were in position, the competition officially began. 6 Great Academies ranking competition. First Academy of Star Dragon Academy versus Starry Sky Academy. First round, Qian Duo Bao versus Wang Kong. The competition starts now. After the host announced the start of the competition, he walked down the stage, leaving only Qian Duo Bao and Wang Kong on the stage. Qian Duo Bao looked at Wang Kong indifferently and said, "I heard that most of the students of the Starry Sky Academy are commoners. Is that true?" Wang Kong slightly frowned and didn't respond to Qian Duo Bao. He came to participate in the competition, not to participate in a Q&A session. Seeing that Wang Kong didn't speak, Qian Duo Bao simply said to Wang Kong, "I don't particularly like to fight. If I can solve something with money, I won't fight. How much do you think I can buy you to admit defeat?" As Qian Duobao's voice fell, the lively atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Since the beginning of the 6th Great Academy's ranking competition, it was the first time that they saw a contestant who openly spent money to buy victory on the stage. He was simply a genius. Beep, beep, beep. When the referee's whistle sounded, Wang Kong was preparing to attack Qian Duobao. However, Qian Duobao casually threw a spiritual value card in front of Wang Kong and said indifferently, "This card is 10 million. The money is yours, and the victory is mine. What do you think?" Wang Kong glanced at the spiritual value card on the ground, and his face suddenly turned red. It wasn't because of joy, but because of anger. "I'm not the kind of person who would sell his soul for money." In the midst of his angry roar, Wang Kong stepped on the spiritual value card and angrily rushed towards Qian Duobao. Chapter 305. Qian Duobao had always been unscrupulous since she was young. She never cared about how others looked at her, nor did she take it to heart because of the outside world's evaluation of her. In Qian Duobao's life creed, money could solve all problems. If the problem was not solved, it could only mean that the money you gave was not enough. When he saw Wang Kong charging at him, Qian Duobao still didn't move. He just calmly threw out another card and said to Wang Kong, "There's 100 million in here. If you stop, it's all yours." Wang Kong did not seem to hear this. He still rushed towards Qian Duobao with red eyes, completely unmoved by money. Seeing Wang Kang's performance, Qian Duobao was a little helpless. She sighed and said, "You're really stubborn. I hate people like you the most." Seeing that Wang Kong was about to kill her, Qian Duobao spoke again. "I'm the Qian family's first daughter. If you dare to touch me today, I can guarantee that you and your family will have a hard time in the future. If you don't believe me, you could try." Wow! As Qian Duobao's voice fell, there was a sudden exclamation in the audience. The audience probably never thought that Qian Duobao would actually do such a thing to threaten his opponent in the ring. This was simply too shameless. In the arena, the elders of the Qian family who came to watch the competition for Qian Duobao were so angry that their lungs almost exploded when they heard Qian Duobao's words. Their Qian family's face was completely lost by Qian Duobao. Not only did the Qian family feel embarrassed, but the contestants of the First Academy of Star Dragon in the reserve area also had ugly expressions on their faces. Qian Duobao's actions were not only discrediting the Qian family, but also discrediting them. "Qian Duobao, what are you doing?" Qin Haoshuan was trembling with anger. If he won the arena later, would it be because he was strong or because his opponent was afraid of the Qin family? Yi Qingning snorted and said, "She has been like this since she was young. She seems to have no brain. If she can't solve a problem with money, she uses threats to solve it." Hearing Yi Qingning's words, Qin Haoshuan's face darkened. He knew Qian Duobao well, but he never thought that Qian Duobao would mess around in such an important match. If he had known, he would not have agreed to let Qian Duobao be the first to go up the stage. No, he would not have even agreed to let Qian Duobao return to the team. At this time, the faces of the people from Starry Sky Academy were extremely gloomy. Qian Duobao's action was not only insulting Wang Kong, but also insulting them. They were all commoners. If they were to be threatened in a fair competition, how could they devote themselves to the competition? Shameless. Duan Yusin couldn't help but curse. "I've never seen such a shameless person. Is this the first daughter of the Qian clan, one of the 4 great clans?" Wang Yu angrily said, "Although we are commoners, we shouldn't be humiliated like this." Hearing the angry roars of the people around her, Zhou Lin's mood was also not calm. However, the world was like this. It was full of malice towards them. They should have been used to it. Anger was an emotion that only the weak had. However, no matter how angry they were, in the face of Qian Duobao's threat, Wang Kong finally stopped his charge less than half a meter away from Qian Duobao. Wang Kong clenched his teeth, and the muscles on his face twitched fiercely. His eyes were fixed on Qian Duobao. Looking at Qian Duobao's calm face, he really wanted to tear Qian Duobao's fat face to pieces. However, he couldn't do so. He was not alone. He had a family behind him. His father and mother had worked hard to raise him up, hoping that he would one day be able to stand out. It was not easy for him to be admitted to Starry Sky Academy, but he had not graduated yet. He had not had the time to repay his parents, and had not had the time to support his sister. Therefore, he could not offend Qian Duobao. He could not let his poor family become worse because of his stubbornness. What do you mean by that expression? Qian Duobao looked at Wang Kong with a slightly playful expression. Weren't you angry just now? Didn't you want to hit me? Why did you stop now? I spent money to buy you to lose, but you didn't want to. Now that I'm threatening you, you're scared? Qian Duobao, if you have the ability, then compete with me fairly. What kind of ability is it to involve my family? Wang Kong suppressed the anger in his heart and growled at Qian Duobao. Do you dare? Why should I do that? Qian Duobao looked at Wang Kong like he was looking at an idiot. You want me to give up my advantage and compete with you fairly? Isn't that a bit too idiotic? Family background is also an advantage. Facing Wang Kang's roar, Qian Duobao took a step forward and said to Wang Kong, I'm saying that you can hit me now, but do you have the guts? You're going too far. Wang Kong finally couldn't hold back the anger in his heart and raised his fist high. However, when his fist was less than 10 centimeters away from Qian Duobao, he stopped. Wang Kong stopped this time not because of Qian Duobao's threat, nor was it because he was afraid of the Qian family's power, but because the referee made a move. The referee looked at Qian Duobao with a slightly helpless gaze and then looked at Wang Kong. He sighed and said, Your captain has already admitted defeat on your behalf. Qian Duobao has won this match. Hearing the referee's words, Wang Kong was stunned. He looked at the referee in disbelief and then turned to look at Zhou Lin, who was standing below the ring. His expression was extremely shocked and angry. He hadn't lost yet. Why did he have to surrender? Not only was Wang Kong stunned, but the audience at the scene was also very shocked by Zhou Lin's decision. The battle hadn't officially started yet, and she admitted defeat just like that? Was it because of Qian Duobao's threat? Some people didn't understand, but some people knew in their hearts that if Wang Kong didn't admit defeat and really hurt Qian Duobao, then Qian Duobao's threat might become a reality. This world was just so unfair. Since he has already lost, then let's invite the next opponent to the ring. Qian Duobao stood on the ring and calmly said to the referee, I'm in a hurry. Please ask the Starry Sky Academy to hurry up. The audience, who were still immersed in the profound meaning of Wang Kong being forced to admit defeat, were completely stunned when they heard Qian Duobao's words. This lawless Qian family's legitimate daughter still hasn't played enough. Even the referee was stunned by Qian Duobao and couldn't help but ask, You still want to participate in the competition? Of course. Qian Duobao nodded. I haven't lost yet. Why can't I continue to participate in the competition? Chapter 306. When the audience heard that Qian Duobao wanted to continue participating in the competition, they were furious. They bought tickets to watch the semifinals for the sake of watching exciting battles, not for Qian Duobao to stand in the arena and show off their Qian family's prestige. At this moment, the elders of the Qian family didn't care about the rules of the competition. They directly appeared below the arena in a flash and roared at Qian Duobao. Qian Duobao, get down here. Looking at the flustered elders, Qian Duobao curled her lips and said, Wait a moment. I'm still in the competition. When I lose, I'll go down. When the elders who yelled at Qian Duobao heard Qian Duobao's response, they were so angry that they almost vomited blood. If you continue to compete, the reputation that the Qian family has accumulated over the years will be completely ruined by you. Just when the elders of the Qian family wanted to say something, Qin Haoshuan's face suddenly darkened. He shouted at Qian Duobao, Qian Duobao, get down here. Hearing Qin Haoshuan shout and seeing Qin Haoshuan's gloomy face, Qian Duobao suddenly felt wronged. Brother Haoshuan, I helped you in the competition. It's fine if you don't praise me, but you're scolding me. Qian Duobao acted like a spoiled child in front of Qin Haoshuan as she obediently walked down the arena. Seeing this scene, the elders of the Qian family almost fainted from anger. As an elder, she didn't listen to him, but Qin Haoshuan called her down with just one sentence. What was going on? Qin Haoshuan wasn't in the mood to pay attention to Qian Duo Bao. He looked at the referee and said, Qian Duo Bao used illegal means to win in the arena. I request that she be stripped of her right to compete. Brother Haoshuan, you shut up. Qin Haoshuan stared at Qian Duo Bao coldly and said in a deep voice, Others might be afraid of your identity as the Qian family's first wife's daughter, but I won't. I'm warning you, Qian Duo Bao. This isn't a place where you can do whatever you want. The ranking competition of the 6 great academies was the focus of attention. Almost half of the audience in the Star Dragon Federation was watching this competition. Qian Duo Bao's action could be said to have placed a huge black pot on the heads of these aristocratic families. If they didn't severely punish Qian Duo Bao at this time, how would people look at them when they went out in the future? Facing Qin Haoshuan's reprimand, although Qian Duo Bao felt wronged, she didn't refute. She was fearless since she was young, but what she was most afraid of was Qin Haoshuan's anger. She didn't dare to say anything when she saw Qin Haoshuan's gloomy face. When the Qian family's elder saw Qian Duo Bao's reaction, he didn't know what to say. He forced a smile at Qin Haoshuan before grabbing Qian Duo Bao's wrist and saying, Follow me back to the family. Qin Haoshuan was afraid that Qian Duo Bao would cause trouble again, so he quickly said, Be obedient. Go with your clan's elders. Qian Duo Bao, who wanted to resist and stay to watch the competition, didn't say anything. She obediently followed behind the elder and walked out of the stadium. At this moment, the audience witnessed the whole process of how Qin Haoshuan and the elders of the Qian family dealt with Qian Duo Bao. Their originally angry mood eased a lot at this moment. From the anger of Qin Haoshuan and the elders of the Qian family, they could see that not all members of aristocratic families were so arrogant and domineering. It was just that Qian Duo Bao had been spoiled since he was young, so he was too insensible and arrogant. Just as the audience was discussing Qian Duo Bao's performance, Wang Kong rushed to Zhou Lin and said angrily, Captain, there are some things that we have to bear. Zhou Lin looked at Wang Kong calmly. Admitting defeat for you is the best way to solve the problem. It seemed that Wang Kong lost this competition, but in fact, it was the aristocratic family that lost. Qian Duo Bao, as the first daughter of the Qian family, didn't protect the aristocratic family's prestige. Instead, she had been smearing the aristocratic family's reputation and dragging them down. Zhou Lin took the initiative to admit defeat for Wang Kong. On the one hand, she could protect Wang Kong. On the other hand, she could use Qian Duo Bao's ignorance and arrogance to arouse the audience's anger and dissatisfaction. If Qin Haoshuan and the elder of the Qian family didn't react in time and intervene, the effect would be better. Of course, Zhou Lin wouldn't explain too much to Wang Kong about this. Okay, let me do it next. Zhou Lin took a deep look at the first academy of Star Dragon Academy. Then, she walked towards the arena. When the audience saw Zhou Lin walking towards the arena, they stopped talking about Qian Duo Bao and began to focus on the next competition. Starry Sky Academy had sent out their trump card, Zhou Lin. How would the first academy of Star Dragon Academy deal with it? Just when the audience was curious, Qin Haoshuan, who had been waiting for Zhou Lin, started to move. He walked towards the arena. Since Zhou Lin had already stepped onto the arena, there was no need for him to continue waiting. When the audience saw Qin Haoshuan step onto the arena, they became excited. Qin Haoshuan versus Zhou Lin. This was definitely going to be an exciting duel. Seeing Qin Haoshuan step onto the arena, Zhou Lin said indifferently, I won't be threatened. If you want to threaten me, you don't have to say it. No matter if you win or lose, if your Qin family wants to find trouble with me, I will accompany you at any time. Qin Haoshuan's expression changed slightly when he heard Zhou Lin's words. Then, he chuckled and said to Zhou Lin, It seems that you have misunderstood us. Qian Duo Bao's actions can't represent all of us. Moreover, I have never bullied others. If I were that kind of person, perhaps Qin Xuan wouldn't have the chance to sit in the audience and watch the competition. When the audience heard the conversation between Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin, they subconsciously glanced at Qin Chuan, who was sitting in the audience. They felt that Qin Haoshuan's words were reasonable. If Qin Haoshuan was really that kind of person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, Qin Chuan would have been dead by now. Facing the audience's gaze, Qin Chuan felt a little annoyed. He was just sitting there and watching the competition. How did he become the focus of everyone's attention? It's all that son of a bitch Qin Haoshuan's fault. Why does he have to drag me into everything? 6 Great Academies ranking competition. First Academy of Star Dragon Academy. Qin Haoshuan versus Starry Sky Academy's Zhou Lin. The competition starts now. Toot toot toot. When the whistle sounded, Qin Haoshuan waved his hands and an invisible airflow swept towards Zhou Lin. At the same time, a metal barrier condensed in front of Zhou Lin. The moment the metal barrier was formed, a violent collision sound was heard. A football-sized hole appeared on the smooth surface of the metal barrier. Chapter 307. It's the charging wind cannon. I didn't expect the fight between Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin to be so intense right from the start. What's more, I didn't expect Zhou Lin to block the charging wind cannon. Qin Haoshuan's charging wind cannon is launched instantly. Under normal circumstances, it's very difficult to react to it. Zhou Lin must have been prepared in advance to block the charging wind cannon so perfectly. No matter what, I'm already looking forward to this match. When the commentator's voice sounded, there was a new change to the fight in the arena. After the charging wind cannon failed, dozens of huge wind blades condensed around Qin Haoshuan and flew toward Zhou Lin. However, these wind blades didn't directly rush toward Zhou Lin. Instead, they spread out and surrounded Zhou Lin, blocking all her escape routes. Extreme Wind Sword, Qin Haoshuan shouted. The wind blades circling around Zhou Lin suddenly turned into dozens of sharp wind swords. They emitted ear-piercing buzzing sounds and surrounded Zhou Lin. When Zhou Lin saw this, she didn't panic. The spiritual energy in her body surged and formed a thin, pale golden protective film around her. When the wind swords hit the protective film, the sound of metal colliding could be heard. There were even sparks flying. However, in the end, they couldn't break through Zhou Lin's defense. However, this was only Qin Haoshuan's probing attack. It was normal that it didn't work. Just as Qin Haoshuan was about to launch his next attack on Zhou Lin, his expression suddenly changed. He exerted force on his feet, and his body suddenly retreated backward. Almost at the same instant that Qin Haoshuan retreated, the floor tiles suddenly shattered, and dozens of golden chains drilled out from the ground and coiled towards Qin Haoshuan to coil around him. The speed of the chain was extremely fast, but it still couldn't catch up to Qin Haoshuan. Just when the audience thought that Zhou Lin's attack was going to miss, the ground behind Qin Chuan shattered once again. Several more chains rushed out from the ground and headed straight for Qin Haoshuan. Seeing this, Qin Haoshuan's expression darkened. He shouted, "Extreme wind freeze." The chains that were about to reach Qin Haoshuan suddenly seemed to have lost their target and stopped in the air. Then they emitted a mournful sound and suddenly shattered. Seeing this scene, the commentator could not help but sigh and say loudly, "Amazing, really amazing." Both Zhou Lin's counterattack and Qin Haoshuan's counterattack were brilliant and decisive. Zhou Lin laid a trap in advance and waited for Qin Haoshuan to take the bait. Unfortunately, Qin Haoshuan's reaction was too fast. Next, the two of them returned to the same starting line. I wonder what will happen next. At this moment, the audience's eyes were filled with excitement. They were nervously paying attention to every change in the arena. They really wanted to know if Zhou Lin, a commoner genius, could defeat the Qilin child of an aristocratic family. 10,000 blades, Zhou Lin shouted. The fragments of the broken chain immediately turned into sharp blades of different sizes and shot towards Qin Haoshuan at lightning speed. They approached Qin Haoshuan almost instantly. Facing Zhou Lin's attack again, Qin Haoshuan clasped his hands together, and the spiritual energy in his body surged. He shouted angrily, "Extreme wind rebuke." With Qin Haoshuan as the center, a huge repulsive force was produced. All the sharp blades that were flying towards Qin Haoshuan were repelled, and they scattered in all directions. Seeing this, Zhou Lin immediately released her complete form without hesitation. Majestic spiritual energy surged. It was like a huge wave that covered the sky and pressed towards Qin Haoshuan. A huge golden palm that could cover the sky appeared above the arena. The pressure was shocking, and it pressed towards Qin Haoshuan in an unstoppable manner. Seeing this scene, the audience could not help but exclaim, "Extreme wind split." At this moment, Qin Haoshuan shouted angrily. An extremely sharp wind blade shot out from his palm and rushed towards the palm that was pressing down from the sky. The extremely sharp wind blade fiercely collided with the palm, and an ear-piercing sound was produced. The seemingly powerful palm was torn apart by the wind blade, and the clear sky was revealed. Before the audience could breathe a sigh of relief for Qin Haoshuan, Zhou Lin's figure appeared beside Qin Haoshuan in an instant. A sharp longsword had appeared in her hand, and she stabbed it towards Qin Haoshuan's chest. Facing this sudden crisis, Qin Haoshuan displayed a good psychological quality. He turned around and directly grabbed Zhou Lin's longsword with his palm, made of flesh. At the cost of his palm being injured, he successfully slowed down the longsword's speed. Then, he took advantage of the momentum and slammed his palm out. Extreme wind rebuke. As his spiritual energy surged, a powerful repulsive force was produced. Zhou Lin's body was pushed back uncontrollably. No matter how she struggled, she could not break free from the repulsive force. Seeing that Zhou Lin was forced back by Qin Haoshuan, many people breathed a sigh of relief for Qin Haoshuan. Zhou Lin's attack was too powerful. It could be said that she was forcing Qin Haoshuan to take the initiative. If Qin Haoshuan had not made a decisive choice at the crucial moment and used his injured palm to buy enough time to counterattack, the outcome of this battle might have been decided. As expected of Qin family's ultimate technique, extreme wind skill is really powerful. Qin Haoshuan's usage of extreme wind skill can be said to have reached perfection. Moreover, Qin Haoshuan's choice at critical moments is also incredibly important. He has a calm mind, and that's really rare. I think that Zhou Lin's performance is also very stunning. From the beginning, she was attacked by Qin Haoshuan, and then she took control of the situation. The rhythm of the battle can be said to be quite perfect. It's a pity that extreme wind technique is too domineering. Otherwise, Zhou Lin might have already won. Just as the commentators were sighing, Zhou Lin and Qin Haoshuan had distanced themselves from each other. Neither of them took the initiative to attack, and they were both cautious of each other's methods. "I underestimated you." Qin Haoshuan looked deeply at Zhou Lin and said, "However, from now on, you won't have a chance." Qin Haoshuan suddenly shouted angrily, and the spiritual energy in his body surged. A clear dragon's roar erupted from Qin Haoshuan's body. Immediately after, some slight changes happened to Qin Haoshuan's body. 2 light green dragon horns appeared on his head, and transparent dragon scales appeared on his body. An extremely powerful aura descended on the stage and suppressed Zhou Lin. Extreme wind dragon form. Qin Haoshuan looked at Zhou Lin with his golden eyes and said indifferently, "You're able to force me to use my dragon form. Very good." Zhou Lin's expression couldn't help but become extremely solemn when she saw the changes on Qin Haoshuan's body. At the same time, the shadow of a golden armor slowly appeared on the surface of her body. It gradually condensed into substance and enveloped her body. Chapter 308. When they saw Qin Haoshuan's polar wind dragon form and Zhou Lin's golden armor, everyone was stunned. Polar wind dragon form. I really didn't expect that Qin Haoshuan had already completely controlled the dragon soul and could use it to transform into a dragon form. I can clearly feel that Qin Haoshuan's aura is so strong that it has surpassed the building foundation stage. It is almost at the level of half-step gold core stage. At this moment, Qin Haoshuan can even fight against a gold core stage powerhouse. Not only Qin Haoshuan, the golden armor on Zhou Lin's body looks like a crystal suit no matter how I look at it. However, this crystal suit shouldn't be a normal crystal suit. It is transformed by Zhou Lin's spiritual power and as part of the ability of a crystal suit. It is really not easy to achieve this level. Now, Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin have completely revealed their strongest forms. Now, it is time to decide the final winner. While the commentator was passionately explaining to the audience, Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin had already fiercely collided in the arena. The dragon form gave Qin Haoshuan a strong body, powerful strength, and extremely fast speed. On the other hand, Zhou Lin was under the protection of the crystal suit formed by her spiritual power. Her defense was infinitely high, and her attack power and movement speed were also greatly enhanced. It could be said that the two of them were evenly matched in strength. Bang! 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 At this moment, it was almost impossible to see Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin's figures in the arena. The two of them were fiercely fighting while moving at high speed. Every time they collided, there would be extremely strong fluctuations of power. The arena was beginning to be unable to withstand it and was falling apart. In the spectator stands, Qin Chuan watched the situation on the stage, and a trace of worry couldn't help but appear on his face. If the battle could end in a short period of time, then Zhou Lin still had a chance to win. But if it dragged on, then Zhou Lin would definitely lose. The crystal suit on Zhou Lin's body was transformed by spiritual power. If Zhou Lin wanted to maintain this form, she had to consume a huge amount of spiritual power at every moment. In the current situation, Zhou Lin would be exhausted in, at most, 3 minutes. On the other hand, Qin Haoshuan's main source of energy to maintain his dragon form came from his dragon soul. Thus, Qin Haoshuan did not consume much of his energy. By the time Zhou Lin was exhausted, even if Qin Haoshuan could no longer maintain his dragon form, he would still be able to maintain a considerable amount of combat power. Defeating Zhou Lin would be a piece of cake. Therefore, if Zhou Lin wanted to win, she had to defeat Qin Haoshuan within 3 minutes. But it was too difficult for her. Dong! Suddenly, there was a violent explosion on the stage. Zhou Lin fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, forming a huge crater in the stage. Before the audience could exclaim, Zhou Lin's figure had already rushed out of the crater and entered the battle again. When he saw this, Qin Chuan could not help but feel a little nervous. That attack just now must have caused a great deal of damage to Zhou Lin. However, Zhou Lin did not stop at all and once again threw herself into the battle. Clearly, she did not have much time left, and she could not afford to waste even a single second. After hundreds of intense collisions, Qin Chuan could not help but let out a long sigh. I lost. Just as Qin Chuan sighed, Zhou Lin's figure suddenly appeared at the edge of the stage. At this moment, Zhou Lin's golden armor was already in tatters. Her exposed body was also badly mutilated. Her face was extremely pale, and her breathing was like a bellows. Clearly, she was exhausted to the extreme. On the other side, Qin Haoshuan's situation was much better. Not only was his dragon form intact, but his breathing was also relatively stable. He was in an excellent state and still had the strength to fight. You lost. Qin Haoshuan looked at Zhou Lin with admiration. He had not fought to his heart's content in a long time. This feeling was simply too refreshing. Zhou Lin did not respond to Qin Haoshuan because she was still accumulating her energy and preparing for the final battle. Seeing Zhou Lin's performance, Qin Haoshuan could not help but sneer. He would use his absolute strength to tell Zhou Lin that all her struggles were useless. At this moment, Zhou Lin had already gathered the last bit of spiritual energy in her body into her palm. She looked at the spiritual energy ball in her palm and let out a breath of turbid air. 10. Sword. Return. Sect. As Zhou Lin's angry roar sounded, the spiritual energy ball in her hand suddenly rolled violently. It suddenly expanded and exploded in the air, turning into countless tiny sharp blades that brazenly rushed toward Qin Haoshuan. Seeing Zhou Lin's final attack, Qin Haoshuan's expression could not help but become a little serious. He shouted in a low voice, "Extreme wind shield!" Thousands upon thousands of tiny blades collided with the windshield wall, creating a sharp, ear-piercing sound. When the last wave of blades ended, although the windshield was in imminent danger, Zhou Lin no longer had the strength to launch another attack. Looking at Qin Haoshuan, who was standing safely behind the windshield, Zhou Lin's eyes could not help but reveal a hint of sadness. In the end, she was unable to defeat Qin Haoshuan. "I lost." Zhou Lin took a step back and took the initiative to fall off the stage. Since she was already exhausted and did not have the strength to continue fighting, there was no meaning in continuing to stay on the stage. She would only be humiliating herself. Seeing Zhou Lin's number, the expressions of the Starry Sky College's people were extremely gloomy. They could see that Zhou Lin had already used all her strength, but Qin Haoshuan still had strength left. Zhou Lin had lost this battle, which meant that the Starry Sky College had lost. The battle was over, and Qin Haoshuan had won. The audience cheered for Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin at the same time. Whether it was Qin Haoshuan or Zhou Lin, their performances were extremely brilliant and had won everyone's respect. Qin Haoshuan also felt sorry for Zhou Lin. This was the difference between a commoner and an aristocratic family's descendant. If Qin Haoshuan did not have a dragon soul, he might not have been Zhou Lin's opponent. On the other hand, if Zhou Lin also had a powerful family background and a trump card that could contend with a dragon soul, she might not have lost. In the end, Zhou Lin had lost not because her strength was inferior, but because her foundation was too weak. After winning, Qin Haoshuan did not continue to stay on the stage. Instead, he handed the rest of the battle to Drizzt and Yuna. There was no suspense. After the Starry Sky College's people tried their best to defeat Yuna, they fell in front of Drizzt and lost this battle. They had lost the qualifications to enter the finals. The last remaining spot would be decided between the Divine Sword Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy. Chapter 309. The Battle of the Pinnacle. Qin family's Qilin Sun versus the Queen of Blades. One of the top 10 exciting matches of the year. The semifinals you can't miss. Dragon Form versus Spirit Transformation Crystal Armor. The clash of the super geniuses. As the match between Star Dragon's First Academy and Starry Sky Academy came to an end, the media scrambled to report on the content of the semifinals. Most of the time, they focused on the match between Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this match was one of the most exciting matches ever held in the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. In this year's 6 Great Academies ranking tournament, there was no match that could surpass it. In the final result, although Zhou Lin lost to Qin Haoshuan, no one felt that Zhou Lin was weak or a loser. This was because their performances were too perfect. There was almost no flaw. Of course, regarding the matter of Qian Duobao, the media was very tactful and did not mention a word. The audience talked a lot about this matter, but it was only limited to a small circle. Everyone was not stupid. No one would discuss this matter on the internet. If it provoked the anger of the Qian family, it would not be a joke. At the end of the competition, the media and reporters scrambled to interview the victorious Star Dragon's First Academy. Although there were some reporters from the Cosmic Star Academy, there were only 2 or 3 of them, which made the Cosmic Star Academy's people feel extremely complicated. "Lin Lin, we've implicated you." Duan Yusin looked at Zhou Lin with a sad expression. She felt sullen and sad. If it wasn't for them dragging her down, with Zhou Lin's strength, she definitely wouldn't have stopped here. "All right, it's over. There's no need to talk about this. Let's go back and study our opponents for the 3rd place match." Su Kuang isn't someone easy to deal with. Zhou Lin smiled at Duan Yusin and said, "You guys are making it seem like we're last. If we can get 3rd place this time, we won't have any regrets." Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Duan Yusin's eyes slightly moved and asked, "You trust your junior so much that you think he can defeat Su Kuang?" In the next semifinals, the Black Moon Combat Academy would be fighting against the Divine Sword Academy. Zhou Lin wanted them to study the Divine Sword Academy. Didn't that mean that the Black Moon Combat Academy would win? I've never let you down. Qin Chuan walked over from the side with a smile and stood beside Zhou Lin. He sized Zhou Lin up from head to toe and then said to Zhou Lin, "In the finals, I will seek justice for you, senior. I believe you will win." Zhou Lin smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "Come, accompany me for a walk." Qin Chuan smiled and agreed. "Sure, it's my treat. Let's go eat." With that, Qin Chuan and Zhou Lin walked out. Duan Yusin, who had been abandoned, had a bitter expression on her face. She gritted her teeth and said, "They're simply a pair of adulterers." Walking on the street outside the Red Dragon Gymnasium, the passers-by were fiercely discussing the competition that had just ended. They were praising Qin Haoshuan's strength and Zhou Lin's terror. It was as if they had a lot to say. Qin Chuan raised his head and looked at the replay of the competition on the huge crystal screen in the sky. He said to Zhou Lin, who was beside him, "Senior, you must be very sad." Zhou Lin pursed her lips and said softly, "You saw through me." She had come to the 6th Grade Academy's ranking competition to win the championship. Even if she lost, she was only willing to lose to Qin Chuan. However, she had already been defeated before she even met with Qin Chuan. How could she be in a good mood? She was just forcing a smile in front of everyone. Now that she was facing Qin Chuan, she didn't want to continue pretending. "You've already done your best." Qin Chuan looked at Zhou Lin seriously and said, "If Qin Haoshuan didn't have a dragon soul, he definitely wouldn't be your opponent. That's only an if. I'm a practical person. I've never used false illusions to fool myself." Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and asked, "If you met Qin Haoshuan in the finals, how would you deal with him?" Although she still had a good relationship with Qin Chuan after not seeing him for over a year, she didn't really understand Qin Chuan's strength. Qin Chuan glanced at Zhou Lin with a complicated expression when he heard that. He said, "Senior, if I become a monster one day, how would you treat me?" Zhou Lin was slightly surprised when she heard that. She then said, "In my eyes, you'll always be Qin Chuan." Qin Chuan chuckled when he heard Zhou Lin's answer. He said, "Senior, I'm relieved to hear that. Actually, there's something I've wanted to talk to you about for a long time, but I never had the chance. Perhaps today is a good opportunity." Originally, Qin Chuan wanted to bury the matter of Azure Dragon Song, Hao, and Lion Duke in his heart and not mention it to anyone. However, Qin Chuan couldn't hide everything from Zhou Lin. He trusted Zhou Lin, and at the same time, he was willing to tell her some of his secrets to relieve the pressure and depression in his heart. It's a long story. To put it simply, Qin Haoshuan and I each took the dragon blood and dragon soul from a dragon. He has a dragon form, and so do I. Zhou Lin couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan with shock when she heard Qin Chuan. "You have a dragon form as well?" "Yes." Qin Chuan nodded and said, "That's why I'm not afraid of Qin Haoshuan's dragon form at all. In fact, I'm even stronger than him." Although Qin Haoshuan's dragon soul was very powerful, Qin Haoshuan used the extreme wind technique to control the dragon soul. On the other hand, Zhou Lin had the dragonization technique that Azure Dragon Song Hao had personally taught him. It was obvious that the dragonization technique was superior when it came to dragon form. Zhou Lin took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said, "It seems like you've obtained a lot of opportunities during this period of time. You can say that I've obtained some benefits." Qin Chuan smiled. If there were benefits, there would naturally be a price to pay. Defeating Qin Haoshuan and taking back the dragon soul was one of the prices he had to pay. This should be a very important secret to you, right? Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan. "You're telling me just like that? Because I believe that you'll keep it a secret from me." Qin Chuan looked at Zhou Lin with a smile. "If you wanted to betray me, I'm afraid that I would have been captured and dissected." For Qin Chuan, the matter of refining his body with dragon blood wasn't a particularly big secret. The real secret was the embryonic form of the domain. This was something that even nascent soul stage cultivators attached great importance to. If Zhou Lin had trusted him and betrayed him, he would have been imprisoned by some mysterious big shot long ago. Chapter 310. The heat from the battle between Qin Haoshuan and Zhou Lin had gradually died down due to the arrival of the next round. At this moment, everyone's attention had shifted to Qin Xuan and Su Kuang. Now that Zhou Lin had lost her match and left the stage, the only dark horse left was Qin Xuan. If Qin Xuan could defeat Su Kuang and lead the Black Moon Combat Academy into the finals, then regardless of the outcome, Qin Xuan would be the biggest dark horse in this year's 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. Once Qin Xuan obtained the final victory, he would become the first person in history to obtain first place in both the freshman competition and the official competition in the same year's 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. However, all of this had to happen in the most perfect scenario. With the Black Moon Combat Academy's overall strength, it would be very difficult to defeat the Divine Sword Academy. June 7th, 8 in the morning. Everyone from the Black Moon Combat Academy had already arrived at the stadium's preparation area. At this moment, the Divine Sword Academy's people had yet to arrive. Aside from a staff, there were only the Black Moon Combat Academy's people in the preparation area. Chen Changxing looked around and asked Qin Xuan, "Boss, shouldn't you find a reason?" Qin Xuan was stunned when he heard this. He was puzzled as he asked, "What reason?" "The reason why I'm not allowed to fight in the first round." Chen Changxing was also stunned. "Boss, don't tell me you've forgotten about this matter?" In the past few days, Chen Changxing had asked Lan Shuxin to train with him every day, using the reason that he was going to be the first to fight in the semifinals. After interacting with each other for a few days, Lan Shuxin's anger had dissipated. The relationship between the two of them had returned to how it was before. Chen Changxing even boasted in front of Lan Shuxin that he would definitely win the first match and not let down Lan Shuxin's efforts in the past few days. Because of this, Lan Shuxin could be said to have high hopes for Chen Changxing. According to the original plan, Qin Xuan would find a reason to replace Chen Changxing in the first round before the start of the competition. However, looking at Qin Xuan's appearance, it seemed that he had long forgotten about this matter. "So you're talking about this matter?" Qin Xuan smiled and said to Chen Changxing, "I don't think there's a need to replace you. It's good that you're the first to fight." Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Chen Changxing's expression immediately became extremely interesting. He stared blankly at Qin Xuan for a while before he said to Qin Xuan, "Boss, tell me the truth. Are you trying to frame me?" Qin Xuan raised his eyebrows and asked, "I framed you? Then I'll explain it clearly to you." Chen Changxing's Chen. "Boss, eyes to you, to me, to you." Seeing Chen Changxing acting cute, the others couldn't help but laugh. This wasn't the first time that Chen Changxing had suffered at the hands of Qin Xuan. Why didn't he learn his lesson? While everyone was watching Chen Changxing, the representative team of the Godsword Academy had finally arrived. The person walking at the front had a head full of long hair. He was dressed in a white robe and had a pitch-black long sword tied to his waist. He had a handsome face and an elegant demeanor. It could be said that he was the type of guy that all the girls liked. When this person appeared, a name involuntarily popped up in the minds of the Black Moon Combat Academy students: Su Kuang. His appearance and name didn't really match. At the very least, no one could tell what was so crazy about Su Kuang. While the Black Moon Combat Academy students were observing Su Kuang, the Divine Sword Academy students were also sizing up Qin Xuan. Both sides looked at each other for a while before politely greeting each other. "This must be the famous miracle youth, Qin Xuan. I am Su Jiao from the Divine Sword Academy." Su Jiao was a man with a feminine appearance. If he didn't listen to his voice and wore female clothing, he would be mistaken for a girl. Because he was worried about being misunderstood, Su Jiao kept his hair short and clean, making him look quite spirited. Facing Su Jiao's greeting, Qin Xuan smiled and replied, "I don't dare to call myself a miracle youth. Just call me Qin Xuan." Just as Su Jiao was about to say something, the dainty girl standing beside Su Kuang suddenly stepped forward and said to Qin Xuan, "If you meet Su Kuang in the next round, I hope that you will not hold back. You will go all out." Qin Xuan was stunned for a moment. When he heard the first half of her words, he thought that this girl wanted him to go easy on her. However, when he heard the second half, Did this girl have a grudge against Su Kuang? Meower. Su Kuang frowned. Don't speak nonsense. I understand, brother. Su Miao. Took a step back and stood beside Su Kuang again. She then smiled at Qin Chuan as if nothing had happened. Seeing the situation in front of him, Qin Chuan felt that something was strange. What were these people doing? After this small interlude, the greetings between the participants had come to an end. Both sides naturally sat down and quietly waited for the start of the competition. Boss, this Su Miao is said to be Su Kuang's fiancée. She asked you to go all out. Could it be that she has taken a fancy to you? Chen Chongqing rubbed his chin and thought about the possibility of this happening. Qin Chuan rolled his eyes at Chen Chongqing. He was too lazy to talk to this idiot. Friends in the audience and those in front of the crystal screens, let us warmly welcome today's participating teams, the representatives of the God's Sword Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy, onto the stage. When the beautiful host's voice fell, the entire arena was filled with enthusiastic cheers. Most of the people were cheering for the God Sword Academy. Only a small portion of people were crazily shouting Qin Chuan's name. In terms of popularity, the difference wasn't that big. Both sides stepped onto the stage, and then it was time to introduce the participants. The first to be introduced was naturally the people from the God Sword Academy. God Sword Academy, Little Sword Celestial, Su Kuang. The beautiful female host's eyes sparkled as she looked at Su Kuang. Su Kuang was handsome, strong, and had a strong background. It could be said that he was the boy that many girls liked. Even the slightly older female host was no exception. When the female host's voice fell, the female fans in the arena also cheered. Su Kuang had satisfied all of their fantasies of being a sword celestial. If possible, they were willing to give birth to a basket of children for Su Kuang. Lover Sword, Su Miao. When Su Miao was introduced, the female host did not look her in the eye. Furthermore, she deliberately avoided looking at Su Miao because she could feel a trace of killing intent from Su Miao's gaze. Clearly, Su Miao was warning her not to have any improper thoughts. 17 Sword, Su 19. Cloud Treading Sword, Su Yun. Keen Metal Sword, Su Xing. Each of the 5 people from the God Sword Academy had their own title. It sounded extremely loud and ceremonial. In comparison, the Black Moon Combat Academy's title was much worse. Chapter 3:11. Next, let us welcome the representatives of the Black Moon Combat Academy. First, let us welcome the captain of the Black Moon Combat Academy, the miracle youth Qin Chuan. When the female host shouted out Qin Chuan's name, there was a response from the audience, but it was much softer than the one from the Divine Sword Academy. At this moment, Qin Chuan suddenly snatched the female host's microphone and shouted, "The Black Moon Combat Academy will win. Qin Chuan will win." When Qin Chuan's shout resounded throughout the entire stadium, everyone was stunned. What was going on? Facing the astonished female host, Qin Chuan grinned and said, "I'm cheering for my academy. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right?" "No." The female host looked at Qin Chuan strangely. This was the first time she had seen someone like Qin Chuan who did not play by the rules. Not only did the female host look at Qin Chuan strangely, but everyone else also looked at Qin Chuan strangely. This person really did not know what it meant to be embarrassed. He was actually able to snatch the host's microphone in front of everyone to cheer for himself. He really was a genius. "Mysterious girl by you." The female host continued to introduce the representatives of the Black Moon Combat Academy. When they heard the female host's introduction of Baiyu, Qin Chuan and the rest could not help but subtly look at the expressionless Baiyu. Mysterious girl? It was a very apt adjective. Illusion Array Master, Lu Zi. Black Flame, Long Xiao. Resourceful Star, Chen Chongqing. Let us once again welcome the representatives of the Divine Sword Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy with a warm round of applause. Next, may the starting contestants from both sides remain on stage. The rest of the contestants, please head to the preparation area to prepare. Chen Chongqing bitterly looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "Boss, Do you really want me to start? Senior Sister Lan is watching you from the audience. Don't disappoint her. Qin Chuan chuckled and patted Chun Chongqing's shoulder before walking down the ring. On the other side, the first to fight was stepping on Cloud's sword, Su Yun. In the previous competition, Su Yun had fought once. He was proficient in the Cloud sword, or simply speaking, the illusory sword. He was known for his craftiness, and was similar to Lu Zi's illusion array. It could be said that he was a difficult opponent to deal with. At this moment, Su Yun saw that Chun Chongqing was the one remaining on the stage from the Black Moon Combat Academy. Su Yun's expression could not help but turn serious. He had studied Chun Chongqing many times before. In the previous matches, although Chun Chongqing's strength was average, he was crafty and full of tricks. If Su Yun was careless, he would fall into Chun Chongqing's trap. Su Yun had to be careful when dealing with Chun Chongqing. The 6th Great Academies Ranking Tournament, the official stage of the semifinals. Divine Sword Academy versus Black Moon Combat Academy. First match, Su Yun versus Chun Chongqing. Let the match begin. Do-do-do. When the referee's whistle sounded, Su Yun almost instantly threw the long sword at his waist into the air. His right index finger and middle finger came together as he pointed at Chun Chongqing and shouted, "1,000 mountains and 10,000 clouds." Following Su Yun's shout, a gigantic sword cloud appeared in the air above the stage. Dozens of sword images shot out from the sword cloud, all of them aimed straight at Chun Chongqing. Golden Crown Technique. Chun Chongqing shouted in a low voice, and a huge circular canopy instantly appeared above his head. The sword's silhouette struck the surface of the canopy, and a clear sound rang out. Although it left behind some marks, it was incapable of breaking through the defense of the canopy. At the same time, Chun Chongqing waved the talisman brush in his hand, inscribing a first-rank battle array. It was his most commonly used golden trap array. Su Yun had already studied Chun Chongqing's golden trap array. Without any hesitation, he rose into the air and used the imperial sword technique to control the scabbard. His feet stepped on the scabbard as he looked down at the stage. At this moment, the place where Su Yun was originally standing had turned into a golden quagmire. If Su Yun had not been prepared, he might have been at a disadvantage. Seeing that Su Yun had dodged the golden trap array, Chun Chongqing was not surprised. If Su Yun had been tricked so easily, he would have suspected that Su Yun had deliberately exposed a flaw to him. Golden Dragon Roam. Chun Chongqing shouted as a gigantic golden dragon suddenly leaped out from the golden quagmire, brazenly pouncing towards Su Yun, who was in the air. Seeing this scene, Su Yun's expression could not help but change slightly. He subconsciously wanted to dodge. His legs exerted force, and his body rose into the air again, temporarily leaving the scabbard. At this moment, the gigantic golden dragon that had pounced into the air suddenly swallowed the scabbard into its stomach. Then, it quickly landed and returned to the quagmire. Seeing this scene, Su Yun's expression changed again. His cloud-stepping sword was in the middle of the sword cloud in the air, and the scabbard was lost. At this moment, he was already barehanded. Perhaps in the next moment, when Chun Chongqing's surprise attack arrived, he would be hit. Myriad Sword Technique. Su Yun was unwilling to sit still and wait for death. He directly activated the killing move, Myriad Sword Technique. As Su Yun's shout fell, the sword cloud in the air suddenly dissipated, turning into a rain of swords that covered the sky and the sun, crashing down. Sensing the change above his head, Chun Chongqing's expression changed slightly. He shouted, "Golden Cage Battle Formation." Hearing Chun Chongqing's shout, Su Yun, who had just landed, immediately dodged to the back. However, the strange thing was that the Golden Cage Battle Formation did not appear beside Su Yun. Instead, it imprisoned Chun Chongqing himself. Almost at the same time as the Golden Cage Battle Formation was formed, the rain of swords that filled the sky also fell. They clanged and struck the Golden Cage, but they were all blocked. This move is really amazing. I originally thought that Chun Chongqing would be defeated by this myriad sword technique. I didn't expect that he would actually think of using the golden cage battle formation to imprison himself to escape this calamity, as expected of a resourceful star. Chen Chongqing has never lacked clever ideas. It is precisely because of this intelligence that he can repeatedly defeat the strong as the weak. However, in this way, although Chen Chongqing can block the myriad sword technique, he will lose his sense of the outside world. As long as Su Yun waits for the rabbit and manipulates it properly, once Chen Chongqing appears, I'm afraid he will be in danger. That's right, but I think Chen Chongqing must have thought of this. Now, we should see how Chen Chongqing plans to break out of the predicament in front of us. Hearing the commentator's words, the audience was filled with anticipation for Chen Chongqing's next performance. At least from the looks of it, Chen Chongqing's performance had always been very good and did not disappoint everyone. However, Su Yun was not to be trifled with. As long as Su Yun seized the opportunity, it would be difficult for Chen Chongqing to turn the tables. Just as everyone was thinking this, the rain of swords that filled the sky finally came to an end and gradually stopped. At the same time, Su Yun began to prepare for a new round of attacks. Chapter 312. Although Chen Chongqing had used the golden cage battle formation to dodge Su Yun's myriad swords technique, he had also put himself in a passive situation. He had lost the ability to collect information from the outside world, causing the situation to become advantageous to Su Yun. Su Yun stood 30 meters away from the golden cage and looked at the golden cage with rapt attention. The stepping cloud sword was already floating above the golden cage under his control, ready to assassinate at any time. With the stepping cloud sword's strangeness, as long as Chen Chongqing revealed a flaw, Su Yun had absolute confidence that he could silently defeat Chen Chongqing. Time passed by minute, but the golden cage did not change at all. There was no movement, but Su Yun was not impatient at all. As far as he knew, there were no gaps in the golden cage. Once a person stayed in it for a long time, they would definitely lack oxygen. The longer the time dragged on, the more advantageous the situation would be for him. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the golden cage. The moment the golden cage opened, it was the moment that determined the outcome. On the stage, Su Yun looked at the golden cage in front of him and could not help but use his spirit energy to sense the golden cage. There were indeed no gaps in the golden cage. He was sure that Chen Chongqing was still inside. If Chen Chongqing sneaked out, he would definitely be able to detect Chen Chongqing's existence at the first moment. Is this guy trying to suffocate himself to death? Su Yun frowned slightly. Chen Chongqing had not come out. In his opinion, there was only one reason, and that was that Chen Chongqing had not thought of a way to deal with his attack. If Chen Chongqing had a way to deal with his attack, he would have come out long ago. Just as Su Yun decided to continue waiting patiently, the quagmire created by the golden trap talisman array on the stage suddenly churned violently. Following that, a huge golden dragon rushed out from it and headed straight for Su Yun. Seeing this scene, Su Yun was slightly startled, and then subconsciously dodged to the side and used his spirit energy to form a sword shield in front of him to protect himself. At this moment, the huge dragon suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a slender thing, piercing straight toward Su Yun. Then, the huge dragon seemed to have lost its strength and collapsed in the air. The thing that was stabbing toward Su Yun was none other than the scabbard of the cloud stepping sword that had been swallowed by the huge dragon. Seeing the scabbard return, Su Yun subconsciously reached out his hand to catch the scabbard, but immediately, the expression on his face changed drastically. Bang! The sound of the floor tiles shattering could be heard. A slender arm suddenly stretched out from the ground, holding a sharp talisman pen, and directly pierced towards Su Yun's lower body. Don't move. If you dare to do anything, I will make you lose it forever. Chen Chongqing squatted in front of Su Yun and looked at the pale Su Yun with a smile. The feeling of having someone's life in his hands was not bad. You. Su Yun looked at Chen Chongqing in disbelief. When did you come out? Admit defeat first, then we can talk about other things. Chen Chongqing smiled and said to Su Yun, "Of course, if you don't want to continue being a man, then you don't have to admit defeat." Su Yun was enraged. He could not help but scold Chen Chongqing. "Don't." Su Yun's face was full of humiliation. He stared at Chen Chongqing and gritted his teeth unwillingly. "I admit defeat." Chen Chongqing put away the talisman brush in his hand in satisfaction when he heard Su Yun admit defeat. Then he clapped his hands and said, "That's right. Weren't you curious about how I came out? Actually, I didn't go in at all." With his lower body out of danger, Su Yun heaved a sigh of relief. When he heard Chen Chongqing's explanation, he could not help but sigh and say, "I was negligent. You should have taken the opportunity to hide in the quagmire created by the Golden Trap Talisman Array." "That's right." Chen Chongqing chuckled and said, "If you had carefully examined the quagmire, I would have nowhere to hide. However, you thought that I had entered the golden cage, so I set up the current trap to lure you into it." The sudden attack of the giant dragon on Su Yun was to distract Su Yun, and spitting out the scabbard was to further distract Su Yun. The collapse of the giant dragon was to lower Su Yun's vigilance. After a series of operations, Chen Chongqing suddenly made his move just before Su Yun was about to catch the scabbard. He successfully grabbed Su Yun's life and forced Su Yun to admit defeat. Su Yun sighed again and said, "As expected of the resourceful star, it's not wrong to lose to you. Thank you for letting me win." Chen Chongqing chuckled and turned to walk down the stage. As he walked, he waved his hand arrogantly towards the stage, looking extremely smug. At this moment, after hearing Chen Chongqing's explanation and thinking about it, everyone understood how Chen Chongqing defeated Su Yun. While everyone was sighing at Chen Chongqing's resourcefulness, they also didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Chen Chongqing's winning method. Using the talisman brush to threaten Su Yun's life and force Su Yun to admit defeat, this kind of thing was probably something only Chen Chongqing could do. One exciting battle. Su Yun had almost used his sword arts to the extreme. Even a myriad sword technique was used. However, he didn't expect Chen Chongqing to be so meticulous. He used the golden cage to successfully deceive Su Yun and hid in the quagmire to wait for an opportunity to move. In the end, he won the competition. He truly deserves the name of the resourceful star. Su Yun is strong in sword arts, and Chen Chongqing is strong in wisdom. However, although Chen Chongqing successfully schemed against Su Yun, his next opponent might not be fooled again. That's true, but it's not absolute. Everything still depends on Chen Chongqing's performance. Now, let's congratulate the Black Moon Combat Academy and congratulate Chen Chongqing for obtaining the first victory. As the commentator's voice fell, the audience erupted into enthusiastic cheers. Although some of the audience weren't fans of the Black Moon Combat Academy, they couldn't help but praise Chen Chongqing's performance. If Chen Chongqing had been on the battlefield, he might have been an outstanding commander. Amidst the cheers of the audience, Chen Chongqing returned to the group with a smile on his face. He looked at Qin Chuan and giggled, saying, "Boss, I didn't disappoint you, right? Yes, your performance was not bad. However, do you plan to continue in the next match?" Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "If you want to rest, that's fine. Then I'll rest for a while." Chen Chongqing didn't try to be brave. In terms of strength, he was inferior to everyone in the Divine Sword Academy. He had been able to successfully scheme against Su Yun because Su Yun had been careless. Now that they had learned from Su Yun's mistakes, the Divine Sword Academy would definitely not lower their guard. It was basically impossible for him to win the second match, so he was too lazy to waste his energy. In any case, he had already obtained the first victory and didn't disappoint Lan Shuxin. Furthermore, he had enough confidence in his teammates and believed that they would be able to obtain victory in the next match. Chapter 3:13. Compared to the relaxed atmosphere on the Black Moon Combat Academy's side, the atmosphere on the Divine Sword Academy's side was a lot weirder. "Captain, I'm sorry. I lost." Su Yun dejectedly walked in front of Su Kuang and apologized to him. He had lost the first match, so he could not shirk his responsibility. We saw the entire process. You did your best, so it's all right. Su Kuang pursed his lips and said, You were schemed against this time. Next time, you'll remember and be more vigilant against similar situations. In the long run, this will be a good thing for your growth. Hearing Su Kuang's consolation, Su Yun could not help but feel even more guilty. He looked at Su Kuang and opened his mouth, but no words came out. At this moment, Su Miao curiously asked Su Yun, with current medical technology, can you put that thing back? Su Yun's expression suddenly became interesting. How was he supposed to answer this question? The others also looked at Su Miao strangely. Why would she ask such a question? Even if it could be put back, no man would be willing to bear the pain of losing his life vain. Just thinking about it made their balls ache. Let's have Su Xing go up for the next match. Su Kuang looked at Su Xing standing to the side and said, You're the best at attacking. Against Chen Chongqing, your chances of winning are very high. Brother, look. Su Miao suddenly pointed at the stage, indicating for everyone to look. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads to look in the direction of the ring. A tall and slender figure was slowly walking towards the ring. It's Long Xiao. The Black Moon Combat Academy did not let Chen Chongqing continue in the next match. They chose to switch him out. Seeing this scene, Su Xing's expression turned ugly. Previously, the Black Moon Combat Academy had done something like this against the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities. Now, they were doing the same thing against the Divine Sword Academy. Wasn't this looking down on the Divine Sword Academy and treating them like the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities? The plan remains unchanged. Su Kuang was expressionless. He still decided to let Su Xing go up. On the other side, the spectators and commentators who saw the Black Moon Combat Academy switch were shocked. The Black Moon Combat Academy has actually switched people. They've replaced Chen Chongqing with Long Xiao, who still has his full strength. During the revival round, the Black Moon Combat Academy made a similar decision. At that time, we could understand that Qin Xuan wanted to help Chen Chongqing establish his confidence and regain his confidence. We saw it just now, and Chen Chongqing's performance was extremely stunning. But now, in the semifinals, against a strong opponent like the Divine Sword Academy, I feel that the Black Moon Combat Academy's decision to make a substitution is somewhat inappropriate. It's too careless. My thoughts are similar to yours. The Black Moon Combat Academy's actions are indeed a bit of a waste of battle power, but the problem isn't that big. It's just that both sides are back on the same starting line, so there aren't too many losses. Hearing the commentator's words, the audience also felt that the Black Moon Combat Academy's actions were a little disrespectful to the Divine Sword Academy. If the Black Moon Combat Academy won the competition, then it would be fine. However, if they lost the competition, then the Black Moon Combat Academy would definitely regret their decision. No matter what other people said, the Black Moon Combat Academy had already made the decision to replace Lu Yin, and it could not be changed. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Crackle, crackle! Chun Aochu angrily roared as he viciously smashed everything in his hands onto the ground, smashing it into pieces. How can a son of a bitch win again and again? How can he win? Chun Aochu angrily roared as his face was filled with resentment. His eyes were filled with resentment, and he hated Chen Chongqing to the core. He couldn't wait to see Chen Chongqing be defeated and ruthlessly trampled on. However, Chen Chongqing won again and again, and he even received enthusiastic cheers from the audience. How could Chen Aochu, who longed to see Chen Chongqing be humiliated, endure this? If it weren't for the fact that he was grounded, he would have already gone to find Chen Chongqing and beat him up for revenge. Not far away, Hong Nuan saw Chen Aochu's angry appearance and also cursed. That bastard Chen Chongqing won't be proud for long. Once Su Kuang makes his move, they'll definitely lose. Hearing Hong Nuan's words, Chen Aochu suddenly turned his head and stared at her, asking, "What if the Black Moon Combat Academy wins in the end?" Impossible. Hong Nuan vowed. The Black Moon Combat Academy will definitely lose. 6th Grade Academy's ranking tournament Official competition phase, semifinals, Divine Sword Academy against Black Moon Combat Academy, Su Xing against Long Xiao. Let the competition begin. Toot toot toot. When the whistle sounded, Long Xiao adopted a normal battle strategy. First, she retreated to increase the distance between her and Su Xing. Then, she engraved a talisman array and engaged in long-range combat. Su Xing, on the other hand, displayed the sword cultivator's specialty in offense. Using the Imperial Sword technique to control the sharp metal sword, he stabbed towards Long Xiao like lightning. Facing the sharp metal sword's frontal assault, Long Xiao was neither anxious nor confused. She opened her mouth and spat out a pitch-black flame, taking the initiative to meet the sharp metal sword. And the sharp metal sword that was originally advancing courageously, at this moment, when faced with this black flame, actually chose to evade, retreating to Su Xing's side. Fire restrains metal. After the Divine Sword Academy saw Long Xiao ascend the stage, they chose to let Su Xing fight. I feel that this is a mistake in their strategy. The Long clan's black flames have always been known to burn everything. No matter how sharp the sharp metal sword is, against the black flames, it will be very difficult to display its power. From the very beginning, Su Xing has been restricted. Yes, and after Long Xiao's battle array is successfully engraved, she will have a long-range attack method. The situation will become even more unfavorable to Su Xing. Now, Su Xing must make a timely response to save the situation. Without needing the commentator's explanation, the audience could see that Su Xing was somewhat unable to deal with Long Xiao's black flames. If he was unable to break through the black flames blockade, the sharp metal sword would be very difficult to affect Long Xiao. In this way, Su Xing would lose the Imperial Sword technique he relied on the most. Wanting to defeat Long Xiao was basically impossible. Seeing that Long Xiao's battle array was about to be completed, Su Xing was unwilling to sit and wait for death. He angrily shouted, and the sharp metal sword in his hand suddenly became 10. 10 became 100, and 100 became 1,000, densely floating in the air above the stage. 10,000 sword technique. Compared to the 10,000 sword technique Su Yun used, the 10,000 sword technique Su Xing used was clearly stronger in terms of attack power, and its offensive was even more fierce. For Long Xiao to want to rely on an insignificant black flame to block the 10,000 sword technique was basically impossible. Just at the instant the 10,000 sword technique fell, Long Xiao also finally completed the engraving of the talisman array. She shouted, 3-star flowing fire talisman array, activate. As Long Xiao's voice fell, 3 huge black fireballs suddenly appeared in the sky, emitting a scorching aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. They actually melted all the sword shadows that were descending from the sky, turning them into ashes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.